Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Thursday morning. We got games tonight. College football playoff semifinal tonight. Utah Jazz back in action. Winnable game. I know for some of you that's important. Well, for some of you it's important and you don't want them to win. And for some of you it's important because you do want them to win. But the point is they just beat Miami. They get in Miami again. Jimmy Butler's still suspended. It is, less than ideal times for the Miami Heat. Also, less than ideal times for the Utah Hockey Club. They played last night, TNT, grinder of a game with Florida. They end up losing 4-1. It was a scoreless first period. Florida bullied them, shots all over the ice, maybe a couple of them cheap, could have been penalties, weren't. So, of course, in the intermission on the TNT broadcast, I meant how Utah's got to come out and send a message, but be careful, don't get penalties. Sure enough. High sticking, penalty, power play goal, bang, they're down. Like the first 2 minutes of the period. And they eventually give up a full strength goal, and they were down 2-0. They pulled one back on a power play with about 5 or 6 minutes to go and had some more chances, but ended up pulling their goalie and giving up 2 empty netters and losing 4-1. For more on what went wrong against the defending Stanley Cup champs, here's Adrian Denny to wrap things up with the best of the postgame show.
DJ and PK, the Utah Hockey Club, welcome the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers to Delta Center on Wednesday night to start a 7-game homestand. So they start the 7-game homestand with the defending Stanley Cup champions. Florida, a couple late empty netters. They win it 4-1 after Logan Cooley got Utah within one on a power play goal with 6:19 left to go in regulation. Now, Utah will hit 5 straight games against teams out of the playoff picture in the Western Conference. So if they play with the same consistency that they've played with against some of the teams they've welcomed in here to Delta Center so far this season and played neck and neck with, like Florida on Wednesday night, twice with Dallas, twice with Colorado, Minnesota, Edmonton, Vegas, Washington, Carolina, Boston, Vancouver, they should be in a pretty good spot going up against teams like San Jose, the Islanders, Montreal, the Rangers, and St. Louis. Just have to stay at that level and stay consistent. And Utah, who enters Friday night 5 points out of a playoff spot in the Western Conference, should find themselves in a really good spot heading to the final game of this homestand, January 20th against Winnipeg. So this weekend, we've got San Jose Friday, the Islanders Saturday, 7 p.m. faceoffs. We're on the air at 6 o'clock with Hockey Night in Utah, utahhockeyclub.com for ticket information. And the homestand will continue next Tuesday and Thursday, the 14th and 16th, with Montreal and the Rangers before St. Louis comes to town a week from Saturday. It was another edition of the Logan Cooley Show for Utah on Wednesday night at Delta Center. As I said, he pulled Utah within a goal with 6:19 left to go in regulation. It was his 11th of the year, and it came on that red-hot Utah power play.
A rare miscue between those two. Cooley for Keller in the corner. Up top, it's Mikhail Sergachev. Cooley, side of the net. Cooley scores! Logan Cooley in the power play breaks through here in the third, and Utah has cut the lead in half. Rally towels in the air. Delta Center is alive.
Another great performance from Karel Vejmelka, Veggie, stopping 29 of 31. Again, putting Utah in a pretty good spot to pick up a victory. After the game, we heard from the 20-year-old Logan Cooley, who scored 3 of Utah's last 4 and 4 of Utah's last 6 goals on the power play, in which they're converting at a 30% clip over the last 14 games.
Felt like you guys are kind of in it for most of the game, except at the beginning of 2 periods. Just how did you kind of assess tonight?
Yeah, I think just like you said, we were in it all night. I think we were managing the puck the right way. Obviously, they're a team that has won in the past. They don't give you much. They play the right way the whole game. It seems like there's always a guy in your face. So I think we managed the game pretty well. Obviously until the end, but obviously I think we're in it with these teams like Dallas, Florida. It just the goals are going to start to come. I just think we got to stay positive and take the positives out of it.
Have you ever scored between your legs before?
Yeah, maybe once or twice when I was younger, but I don't know. I'm just I was pretty tired, just trying to get a shot on net and just trying to get a quick play.
When taking on teams like tonight and Dallas, tough opponents, what challenges you the most as a group to get over that hurdle or to get over that hump of not winning those games?
Yeah, I think, it's obviously frustrating when we're, it's a one-goal game and, you can't find the next shot. But, for us, I think we just got to continue to, obviously when there are tough teams like that, they're always in the face. I think, for us, it's just continue to simplify, get pucks to the net and make sure there's traffic. Against Florida like that, there's, like I said, not much room out there, so it's going to be a greasy one. And, I think we just need to be, bat a little more in front of their net and try to get a greasy one.
You're producing a lot more this season compared to last. How do you like the way that your game's progressed this year?
Yeah, it's good. I think you learn a little bit each year. Last year was, kind of a lot of ups and downs. This year I feel, a lot more steady. There's obviously some ups and downs still. It's a long year. You're going to go through some challenges, but, for me, I think, confidence is a big thing, and, I'm kind of having that right now.
How tough is it to play against a team like Florida that their game is based on being really, really physical?
Yeah, it's obviously challenging, but, you're going to have to face a team like that if you want to win the Stanley Cup one day. So, for us, it's, how we respond, what we need to do to obviously not get frustrated when, they're always in your face. There's, hit after hit. So, for us, it's just staying disciplined, trying to do what makes us successful and, try not to worry about what they're doing too much.
What's it like playing against Barkov and Reinhart and those big physical defensive guys?
Yeah, it's fun. I've always liked going up against the top guys in the league, and obviously they're unbelievable players, but they're good defensively too, which makes it challenging. So it's cool, and but obviously we like to come out with one. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we gave you the nuts and bolts on the schedule and the way Utah's been playing, the goaltending they've been getting. Let's hear more on that from head coach Andre Tourney. Heard from him after the game too.
Cooley was saying how he felt like you guys were in it, for most of the night. Just how did you assess it, and then, those few lapses?
Well, a few lapses. They had one shot from the slot after two. You know what? Can we be better? Can we be much better? Not that much. We can be better in certain area offensively, but defensively, I think we're solid. It's a good team, and they're still a Cup champion. So I think defensively we did a lot of good things. I like the effort of the guys. I like the passion and all of it. Offensively, we need to be more connected. I don't know if that's what Cools talk about, but I feel we were pretty good defensively. I think offensively we did not have the same speed, the same rhythm, same puck movements coming from our breakout to the offensive zone. And give them credit, they check hard. They're number one in a lot of areas defensively, and they didn't give us time and space. So I think that's it's a little bit the same than Dallas. I like our team. Even if we didn't have time and space, we went at the net, put pucks at the net. We got rebound. We got chances. We created chances, not a pretty play all the time, but by playing the right way and grinding. And when you play against those kind of team, Dallas and them and other team, you need to generate those, because if not, the pretty play never comes. So I think we scored a good goal in the power play, but we had a lot of grind who lead to that. So there's a lot of positive. Obviously, we're one goal short.
How did you like the way the team responded physically against a team that bases their game on physicality?
You're right, absolutely right. I liked it. I it's for us. You look the growth of the team. You look where we were last year in that kind of a game against them. We got push around a little bit. This year, we emotionally, physically, that was not. We didn't get pushed last year physically, but we got pushed emotionally. We got pushed mentally. We were all over the place from the emotion, the physicality brought. Not this time. We stayed level. We went toe-to-toe with them in that sense. But I like where we were mentally in that emotion.
What did you notice from Sam Reinhart defensively today?
Him and Barkov together, their stick are so good. And the other thing is their puck management. They don't allow you to recover a turnover or to create a turnover or to create a second chance and a third chance and wear them down. We had maybe 1 or 2 shifts in the second where, we were happy about what was going on, but it's really tough to generate mistake from those guys.
In terms of scoring, not just tonight, but over the past few weeks, it's been down a little bit from how you started December.
Yeah.
Is there a reason you see for that, or is it kind of just the ups and downs?
No, but like I said today, I can talk about them. We didn't come out clean in our breakout, but it's a team they're number 1 in the league on the forecheck, so it might be an unfair comment from me saying, hey, you know what, they were good on the forecheck. Well, I should have expected that. So that is one, but that killed a little bit your momentum offensively. But you look at who we played against as well. The team who kept us low, they're elite in the league. And I'm not satisfied, but I'm not unhappy about the offense we're generating. That maybe we don't score as much as, but we're generating chance. Tonight we generate a fair amount of grade A and grade B chance and opportunity. Obviously, like I said, we could have been better for sure, but all in all, I think we generate enough.
Cooley nearly scores between his legs, and then he obviously scores on the power play with a no-look shot. How valuable is it to have somebody so young who's so gifted with the puck?
Yeah, for sure, it's great. It's when you have those young guys, and like I said this week, I was talking. We're talking about guys like Keller, like he's a grandfather. He's 26 years old. Him and Sergei and guys like that. He's still really young. So the game like today, it's good for us. It's good. It's good. It's frustrating, obviously, but there's good in that. It's good for us to learn from it and to go toe-to-toe in those games, to not shy away, to not get pushed, to stay in it and to be there until the end. And obviously, we think we can beat everybody. We think we can play with everybody. So there's a level of frustration, but at the same time, we need to keep with our same mindset. We need to keep going, getting better, keep closing the gap.
McBain has talked about wanting to keep his edge but also be disciplined.
Yep.
How have you seen him grow into that, especially against a team like Florida tonight?
It's really important, and he did a good job. He showed up when it was time. He was physical. He was there for his teammate. I think he did a good job.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
So big weekend coming up at Delta Center, a back-to-back Friday and Saturday starting with the San Jose Sharks. Utah last in action against San Jose on December 14th at SAP Center, and they picked up a 4-3 win. Of course, maybe the most frustrating game of the year against the Sharks was played here on October 28th. That game, Utah was up 4-1 in the final 5 minutes and took an overtime point with the Sharks winning it by a count of 5-4. So that is next up for the Utah Hockey Club. Now 17, 16, and 7 on the season.
There's Adrian Denny with the best of the postgame show. When we come back, Riley Jensen is talking football. Who does he think's going to win it all? Take a guess. He'll tell you next. Stay with us. DJ PK and Riley Jensen joins us once again. College football expert and mental performance coach. Riley, good morning.
What's happening, fellas?
Well, the Big 12 football season is over. It ended when Arizona State got beat. Were you giving PK a hard time about ASU?
Oh, no, he was right there with me. He wouldn't give me a hard time.
Oh.
Yeah, just like I always have. I know you tried to go through those archives and try to find me saying something bad. No way. No way.
Okay, it's on, fool.
I actually was rooting so hard for Arizona State, and I was so when it was 24-8. It just felt like I was so disappointed. Because I really did and Arizona State ended up really showing it. I just thought they were a lot more gritty, a lot more hard-nosed than they were showing up to that point. And I don't know what happened, but from the time to the end of the game was just, it was absolutely like exciting football. And there was part of me that just, it's weird because when I watched Arizona State when Jake the Snake, I still have this impression that they won the Rose Bowl. Like, it's so weird because he played so well, and they actually lost to Ohio State. And in my head, I was like, they need to. When I saw Jake on the sideline, I was like, they need to win this because that was an incredible team for Arizona State. They need to win this game, and it just didn't come through. And I don't know. The Scatavoo kid, Sam, they're a fun team to watch right now. And I don't always love the antics of the coach for Arizona State, but they're definitely a fun team to watch.
Hey, I've been an ASU fan for 40 years. That game was stolen from us. We were excited about being in the college playoff, but not that night. I was not.
Nice.
We won this game. Someone else stole it from us. Very disappointed.
Took you a minute there, Riley, but now you're on board.
That was not fair to our team. I was disgusted by the professionalism of the officiating.
I see what you did there. I do think, actually, it was a bad call.
12 years.
A bad no
This
call.
game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in Big 12, but tonight I am not.
Exactly.
We won this game.
Yeah, calls are calls and non-calls are non-calls. What are you going to do? They're not the first one. They won't be the last. So.
No, it's all the great teams that I've been associated with. They seem to overcome those calls.
Yeah, they almost did. Yeah, they had their chances.
And they almost did. And it was just like one of those things where you really do have to preach to the players and preach to the, to even the staff, the coaches, that like, hey man, we have to be so good that the referees calls don't matter.
Yeah,
they don't matter.
I gotcha. You're a health performance coach, and there was something, and I've been waiting. It's been a week now to ask you this because I thought of this. I thought of you in the very moment, and we were texting back and forth, so you were on my mind to begin with. That you hear coaches, and Kyle Whittingham is big on this. You don't do anything that you don't do. Meaning this is the way we do things, and you don't change things, right? Because that sends a message that you don't want to have to the players. And you've got the field goal kicker for Texas on that last one. Sarkisian's going out and hugging him. And I'm thinking, is that really the right thing to do? Aren't you sending a message, son, this is the biggest kick of your life. You better not bleep this up. And I realize that's not the literal message that he's sending, but does he go hug him and all these other kicks that they've had all through the season? Probably not. It's like, go do your job. Nobody said anything to Farron for BYU when he kicked the 44-yarder. They just asked him, what side of the field do you want the ball on? He said, I don't care. Right? And then it was just go out there and kick the kick. And I thought Sarkisian going out there and hugging him, and why not bring out a couch and have him lay down or something? To me, it's just sending a real awful message. And I was wondering what you thought of it as a professional in that field.
So I think in the very moment, I was like, there was just something that felt like a little bit over the top about it. Like it's not that it wasn't well, but it did feel a little bit over the top. Like it was just like, arms around his neck. He's like looking at him in the face. I love you, brother, whatever he's saying, right? And then I think later on, I heard Nick Saban say something. Mm-hmm. He goes, I always tried to not make it any bigger than any other kick, and so I hardly ever talked to them. You know what I mean? Because I didn't really talk to them in a normal point.
Yeah, that's my point.
Like, okay. Well, and I think the point is really, really well taken. Look, when you make a bowl, like and this is something that I've heard Kyle say before. When you make a bowl game too big of a point, or when you make it too big of a game for a rivalry week, like then it becomes like guys lesson and they become outcome oriented. And really what you want guys to do is just be process oriented in that moment and do something different been doing, then all of a sudden you're kind of throwing things off. And looking at it as a mental performance coach and someone who deals with sports psychology, I do think it was a little bit too much. It was a little bit too much. And you have to normalize pressure. You have to normalize things as a coach. And I think that was the anti-normalization of that moment.
4 teams left. You believe in any of them more, or any of them, if you just want to rule one out, this team, no way? You want to go to Ohio State like pretty much everybody else?
It feels like it. I mean, Ohio State, they've just been nails for everything that they've been doing. I like the way Penn State played. I like the way – I mean, look, the only team that I feel like maybe is lucky to be there is Texas because of the way that it went with Arizona State. But in the beginning of that game, they were dominating. Like, offensive and defensive line was dominating that game early, and I think Arizona State showed some conditioning, showed some mental toughness and all that kind of stuff to come back. So if there was a team that I would leave behind that I just don't think has like that it factor, it would probably be Texas. If I had to pick, if you're asking me to put my house on it, I'd probably go with Ohio State. But man, there's some good things about Penn State. There's some good things about Notre Dame. I just feel like Ohio State is the team to beat in these Final Four, which I think is interesting because, we all talk about, all these different national championships. I don't know the last time we had a national champion that had 2 losses, right? And that would be interesting with them.
With the exception of that year that it was an all-SEC final with LSU in there, 2-loss teams haven't been allowed to play, either in the 14 playoff or the BCS. Right. They just haven't been allowed in. Right.
And so that kind of changes my perspective on things, right? That these guys, or that this playoff actually allowed for a 2-loss team to compete for the national championship.
Utah State hires Bronco Mendenhall, and then I don't think he was the first choice. Not what I've been told, but I don't know that he's necessarily the right choice, but I think he's a right choice because I think this is the type of situation where he knows how to get the job done. What was your thought on that?
Oh, I don't think there's any question that Bronco's a good hire. I think this is something that he loves to do. I think he loves to try and rebuild programs with the way that he likes to build a culture, the way that he likes to build teams. I think he looks at himself almost like an entrepreneur that's like a startup entrepreneur who like comes in, like really builds up a business and then sells it off and then moves on, right? And he is really good at it. And look, you can love Bronco, you can hate Bronco, whether you're a Utah State fan or a BYU fan, you didn't like the way he presented things. The one thing that I can tell you about Bronco is it will be very clear and it will be very concise about what it takes for you to play at Utah State, what it takes to get recruited to Utah State. Everything will be very, very clear. And that's one of the things that I like about Bronco. That's one of the things that as I've looked back from when I played all through the years at different coaches is, look, they can be a scary big personality. They can be a small personality. It doesn't matter what their personality is. If you know the rules to the game, you can win. And what I mean is rules to the game on how to get on the field. And players end up loving him because if he tells you you need to do this, this, and this to get on the field, and then you do A, B, and C that he asks you to do, you'll be on the field. And I think that when you have a coach like that, that engenders like a lot of loyalty, a lot of trust. And I don't see anything but good things coming for Utah State with this hire.
I totally agree with that entrepreneurial, build it up, sell it, move on model. I think that is, it does. He was at BYU a long time, but the last two jobs definitely have that kind of feel to it, right? But
yeah, and I think he thinks he can do that because at BYU, I feel he felt like he was restricted a little bit, and so he's like, it's going to be even easier to build it at Virginia, New Mexico, at Utah State. I can build it with a good culture. So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I think the floor with Bronco, I understand. They're just not going to have losing seasons. He's not going to do that, And so the floor, I understand. I don't have a good feel for what is the ceiling here. How good can they be? Virginia has a ceiling on it, I think, in the ACC. I don't think there's a lot of expectations for them. And he only had 1 year at New Mexico, but I think they had a ceiling on them. I don't know, with them going to a new league, it's been a long time. I mean, he really kind of had his hands tied in that independence era at BYU too. So it's been a long time since we've seen him really be able to go for a massive season. And I think Aggie fans expect that. They've had a couple of those. They've won the conference. They've been in the conference final. They've had double-digit wins, I think, 3 times. Do you have a feel for what his ceiling is there?
Well, I think that's like a golden question. I think I think there are some things that are outside of his control that will be interesting to see as it develops, right? Like, what does the Pac-12 end up really looking like? What does the Pac-12 contract end up looking like? How much money are they going to be able to pay for NIL and for some different things? It's already a staff that's getting paid more than any staff that's been there. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but how much money does Utah State really have, and how much will these contracts come through and pay? And I think there's just a lot of gray area there that I don't know that he's necessarily concerned about that. But when you talk about like, what is the ceiling? Is there a ceiling? Right now, I definitely feel like there's a ceiling until some of those questions are answered. Like, I don't know how far you can go or how high you can go. I do expect that his teams will play hard. I do expect that they will play hard for him, and I think that they're going to have success. I don't know. I can't remember the first year of Virginia, but there just hasn't been very many losing seasons when Bronco Mendenhall's been a coach. And so he knows the formula for winning, and when it's really good, he's pretty good. He's pretty dang good when they're doing the things that he asks them to do.
What would give you a confidence that BYU, a 5-7, is the outlier, and the 10-2, maybe not all the time 10-2, but successful seasons going forward is the norm?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that was a really good season. I think the whole eligibility question with Pavia at Vanderbilt, that helps BYU for a couple more years because it looks like Retzlaff will maybe be able to dovetail off of some of that. I don't know how much eligibility he's going to get. I think one of the things that's a little bit misleading is that it's only for 2024 graduates or people whose eligibility ran out in 2024 for most of these guys. It hasn't been extended that this is just a junior college rule now that you don't have, that doesn't count against your eligibility. I think so that's a little bit nuanced, but sorry to take a long time to answer your question, but what I see right now is a willingness to pay money. I'm not sure that they're paying more money than other places, but to get, I'm just spacing his name. Keanu Tana, is it Tanavasa?
Yeah, Tanavasa.
Keanu, to get him, you had to offer money. Now, do they offer more money? Do they offer the same amount of money? I don't know. But my gut feeling is that BYU is willing to pay for certain positions right now, for certain key players right now, and look, if you're getting players like Keanu Tanavasa to flip to BYU, and I know this is hard for Utah fans to hear, but he's an impactful player. He's a big time player, and whether it was the same amount and he decided that he'd received revelation to go to BYU, or whether it was a different amount and they paid more, that bodes well for BYU. And I think they're going to be able to strategically pick up players like that if they do it in a smart way. If BYU continues to want to pay for players, and so I think this is an interesting time that we're living in, right? And as we start to see players getting paid and jumping around, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of moves BYU can make, especially if they're strategic about it, like players like Keanu Talabasa.
Well, Riley, we will leave it right there. You were the man. Thanks for coming on and talking a little football with us this morning.
I love it. Thanks, guys, for having me on.
There's Riley Jensen talking football. DJ and PK proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. When we come back, we're talking hoops with Tim LaComb. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. It's time to bring in Tim LaComb, Jazz analyst for SEG Media, former BYU assistant coach, and he was on Rick Majerus' staff at the U. Tim, good morning.
Hey, seems like it's been forever.
I think you coached at American Fork, too, didn't you?
I did. American Fork and Lone Peak, baby.
Yeah, you never includes that. I don't
include the high schools. I blow them off.
Yeah, he just,
snob.
There's a line with him.
Yeah. It's a snob.
Line of credibility, and he has to be outside of high school, I guess.
Next week, you're going to be introduced as the guy from Lone Peak and American Fork. We'll leave off all the other stuff.
And then PK will say, well, you got a problem with BYU or Utah?
See, that's exactly how it works. I do. So we've had a lot of theories, and maybe there's a little truth in all of them because it's rarely one thing. But if you had to put your finger on a couple things right now that could help BYU, what would it be? Because a 1-2 start, this is not the dream. This is not the way it's supposed to be happening. What's going on? A home loss. Help.
Yeah, I was feeling for those guys. Losing at home, no fun. And I think right now they are offensively, they're a little bit out of kilter. They aren't seeming to get like a lot of free good looks, and it seemed like yesterday as the game went on, the rim just got smaller, and they struggled to make free throws. Their offensive flow was a little sped up by Texas Tech, their size and pressure, and so I would say a consistent shot maker, somebody can make a play for themselves more often off the bounce. I think that's really the two things. They play really physical. They really in the scheme of things last night made things hard for Texas Tech, but it was just the inability consistently to get buckets, and that really hurt them.
We were talking about this earlier, that everything is new with the new coaching staff. Normally, when a coach gets a job, like Mark Pope, he took a coach with him. When he got the job at BYU, he took multiple coaches with him. So those guys have been together. It seems like, this staff put together in April, and the team, to a decent extent, put together in April. You had a few holdovers for sure, but you're trying to mesh all that. And in this conference, as I look at it, maybe it's a little more predictable than we thought. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that from a distance, I felt was that chemistry is a huge piece of this, and cohesion. And like you said, they had guys that were here, brought in a bunch of guys on top of that, and then like the whole scheme and coach and everything else. Or I should say coaches. My goodness, I just marvel at the fact that looks to be like 20 coaches on the bench.
When they all wear that gray pullover thing.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean,
the handshake line went on forever. It must have taken an hour to get everybody from both teams up and down that line.
Yeah, it's insane. And I mean, I think back on our days where we had had 5 coaches, 1 manager, and I think latter end we started getting the GA. So, I mean, there were 7 of us, and it's crazy to see that. But I just think, I think, PK, you're right. It takes a little bit of time, but also, I think you go out in a situation like that and you see guys play quickly, and, you look at tape and it's competitive because everybody's in the portal. And so you go out and you do have to take a couple of educated risks on what a guy actually is. And from my experience, then you've got to get him and coach him, and then it's got to take shape. So I do think it was, it's a little bit of the situation. But I also believe over time that the coaches, who are a lot of them new to college basketball, and then the players will find some continuity. I just hope it's not too late.
How much does relying on freshmen scare you? Obviously, there's some older guys on the team. PK and I have gone up and down the roster. But I'm looking at Texas Tech, and they don't seem to be recruiting freshmen. They seem to just be one trend. They get a guy from Nevada. They get a guy from Grand Canyon. They are just some of the kids are on their 3rd school. Is the whole get old, stay old thing, is that oversold, or is that really the way to go?
Well, I learned from experience playing with young guys is tough, and even if they're talented, because there are just so many peaks and valleys in a young player's progression. I mean, we're seeing it with the Jazz right now, and it's awesome when young players start to develop, but each person's on their own timeline. So, I wouldn't expect that in the summertime when the Cougs brought Yegor in and he is people know who this guy is, right? And so I don't think in anybody's mind they think that kid will miss 19 straight threes. And really, at times, the physicality of the game, particularly in the Big 12, it's really takes some getting used to. The one thing I am not is I don't throw a wet blanket on young guys. There's a lot of people that'll watch a guy play 2 or 3 times, and the outcome will determine what they think of that player. I have been around the game long enough to know that, Cade Cunningham in the NBA right now is doing things that everybody hoped he would do as a rookie, but it took some time for him to get acclimated. So this is where they are. I think get old, stay old's got to continue to be a huge part of being successful in college, because the transfer portal's there and you can go out. I mean, I watched the ASU game against BYU, and every guy but one, 4 of the 5 starters were seniors and transfers from different places. So that's just going to have to be something that the staff figures out. You always want high-level talent, however, and so they gobbled up some young guys. Now you just got to hope that the experience is good enough that they stay, and that's always TBD at the end of the year as well.
Yeah, I think you got to give Young time. He got there in April. What's he going to assemble an all-star team here, and they're going to just hit the ground running and go nuts in this conference? No. And then he had guys in and out in the non-conference, and they really didn't play a difficult schedule and weren't challenged to the degree they're being challenged virtually every game here. So just take a step back. If I'm him, get these guys to relax, make some changes. I'm not just saying you do all the things that you're going to keep doing and having the same results. That's pretty stupid. But I think it goes to more of the predictability. I actually didn't think that they were going to win that game. And sure enough, when it got down to the crunch time, it seemed like they didn't really know what they were doing on both ends of the court. So now we get to see what he is as a coach. And I think for the long-term health of the program, that's going to be necessary. And it was going to have to happen at some point. So it's happening now right off the bat.
Yeah, it's always an interesting phenomenon when a new coach comes in, because it's almost as though they absolutely love the press conference, and then you start putting guys on paper, And without a doubt, expectations start to crazily rise.
Right.
So let's not forget it is, in fact, his first chance at this level to be a head coach. And I do think they're doing so many great things, but 1 year does not a career make, and one game does not define a season. But there's no doubt right now they're searching offensively for something.
Yeah.
And I like the way they're competing. I like the way that they competed on the glass and guarded last night and got on the floor. I mean, you've got guys that are willing to play hard. It's just they've got to see some success. They've got to have that ball go through the hoop to get some things going.
Well, they got 5 games coming up now against teams that are currently in the bottom half of the league. So this is a chance to maybe play a little softer part of the schedule, get some W's, get some confidence, and get some wins.
Yeah, that's as a coach, you got your eye on what's in front of you, but you got that 5-game view to get an idea of kind of what's in store. So they'll take this one game at a time. That's the old adage. Try to get better in practice. But to me, everybody take a chill pill and realize that this year wasn't going to be the Final Four anyhow.
You look at the way Walker Kessler is playing. If he marries his girlfriend combined with the way he's playing, is he Mr. America?
I was wondering that. I actually thought Nio had a good one yesterday. She said Miss America's sweetheart could be a good one.
No.
Or Captain America.
No.
Okay, you're not for either of those.
I don't want anybody to be a basketball player who's a sweetheart. And
okay.
Come on, man. We're dealing with a New Jersey junkyard dog.
Was Kobe a sweetheart? Was MJ a sweetheart? Was Stockton a sweetheart? That makes me nervous.
Good point. Yeah, we'll go with Cap. No, not Cap. You said Mr. America, right?
Yeah.
I think that works.
If he's going to play like this, he's been playing well. I think he's made a significant improvement over last year. I don't think that when we get to April, Ainge can say, yeah, well, who you do it against?
Well, yeah, he's been doing it. Jake and I talked about this last night. He's been doing it every night, regardless of who the opponent is. And I do think he's a perfect example of what we're talking about. His first year, he hit the ground, without any understanding who he was or expectation. And all of a sudden, because he had an incredible first year, particularly in the area of rim protection and shot blocking, he's really went into year 2, and the conversation around him instantly went to what more can he do for us on offense. And this is I'm saying outside, right?
Yeah.
So, the whole off season, the buzz was Walker's, he's shooting threes and all this stuff. Well, last year he hit one of those lulls in your career, and things didn't go exactly his way. And I thought what was incredible and has been is he really looked inside, and very rarely do you find people that really kind of lean into who they are or kind of accept it. I feel like that's what he's done. His body changed. He is a ferocious rebounder. His rebounds are so, they're tough and contested. Oftentimes he's tapping that thing to himself 2 or 3 times to get it. But I think it's his, all that stuff that I talked about before, rim protection, ability to block shots, but then you add a consistent effort on the glass every night, which is you're going to be a good offensive rebound. You have to be consistent. You have to go every time. You see that from Walker, a guy who runs the floor and has, in doing so, has really opened up things in transition for the Jazz. I just think he's had an incredible year, and the numbers would speak to it too. I think his numbers this year in comparison to last year and on all the progress he made, man, people got to be excited about this kid.
He did have a little pressure put on him. On media day, we were over there, and they cycled a few people through, and we got to talk to several of them, and he was one of them. And when he sat down, started talking to him about, hey, NBA guys, the third year, if they're going to make it, the third year is a big year for guys who've struggled as a rookie or second-year player. And it clicks in for a lot of people, and you start down that road, and he's got this look in his eye like, oh, you guys too. I knew instantly whether it was the coach or the GM, Ainge, Hardy, whoever, his agent. He had heard that multiple times.
Miss America.
Miss America. Listen, big dog, this is your third year. Bring home the bacon. But it was clear those talks had happened, and it's clear he's delivering on them. And it's something to deliver when you know you're up against it, and it's go time now.
Yeah, I think he's made right. I think his character is right. And you have to be really confident in this league, but you have to be self-aware. You have to understand the situation you're in, what's necessary, what's needed, and where you need to grow. And, I said it from probably first 5 games, like the Walker we saw last year who, still was trying to do everything right. I just think he was affected too much by negative plays. I think he, if he missed a shot or missed out on or missed a free throw, or it affected his persona and whatever it was over the summer. And I do think a big part of it was when I think he committed a ton of time to the weight room and his body changed a whole bunch. I think that was something that maybe allowed him just to go, hey, I can knock people around now. But he, in my words, he's leaned into what he does great. He has definitely adopted the things that make him awesome, making the opponent have such difficult shots at the rim, contesting things all the time, his effort on the glass, both offense and defense. Last night he had 8 offensive rebounds, 10 total. He had 8 offensive rebounds last night, 10 rebounds, 21 points. I mean, if you'd have told Jazz fans that during his swoon last year, people have been so excited that he had found it. But I think he's found it and more. I really do think he's starting to take that upward step.
Tim, thanks for the time. As always, we'll talk to you again next week, and we'll hear you on the Jazz pre-half and post-game shows.
It's an honor to be with you both, and I mean that mostly for DJ and partly for PK.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
There is
you,
the former Lone Peak and American Fork High assistant coach.
There it is.
Tim LaComb. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Coming up next, what is trending? The headlines. Stay with us.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know. News update. This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag Utah Jazz.
I just feel like over the past couple of weeks, we've just been having a little bit more fun out there. And I feel like the ball is being popped around and we're sharing it. And when everybody's able to touch the ball and get shots here and there, then you get a little bit more effort on the defensive end. And you get guys running back just because they know, like, okay, next time down, I might get a shot.
Colin Sexton on the feeling around the team. And, of course, that's really been the feeling around lots of NBA teams and lots of basketball teams for years and decades. But, hey, he's in his 20s, so it's new to him.
What's he feeling?
When you get shots, then there's more energy on defense. Yes. Coaches have talked about that forever. Spread the ball around, get a guy involved, he'll play better on defense.
Well, why don't you play better on defense, and then you have more energy on offense?
And coaches have tried to teach that to young guys, but the message doesn't always sink in.
Well, I think it's up to the crowd. That's why they need to chant offense
instead
of just constantly chanting defense. It sends a subliminal message, guys. We must cease. Offense.
The Jazz are hosting the Miami Heat tonight, a team they just beat on the road, part of a 3-game losing streak for the Heat that they snapped by beating the Warriors in the most recent outing. But they come in losing 3 of 4. Jimmy Butler's in the middle of that 7-game suspension. Opportunity for a win tonight, PK.
And it's understandable what Jimmy, who was a fan of Miami Heat. He had he was front row seats just to the left of the basket.
It all comes together.
Jimmy Butler Is it acceptable what he's doing?
Well, that depends on who you are, I suppose. In the player world, they never.
Not to me.
They never seem to get upset when a player's like, well, this is business, and he's out there getting his money and getting what he wants. But he signed for a year and a half.
Well, what do you think?
No.
I think you need to be playing ball. This is your job.
Right. You sign the contract, play the games. You can opt out at the end of the season and go wherever you want. So just live up to the contract. This is old school stuff that used to happen all the time with the advent of free agency. It doesn't seem to happen very often.
It's what your papa and mama did. They lived up to the contract.
See, there you go.
Freddie J. I start going around Christmas. I give me more cash or forget it. I ain't playing the tuba.
He's getting near the end. He can walk next summer if he wants to opt out of 50.
If he wants to opt out of
$52 million. Yeah, that's really not how that works, as you well know. School districts are not bidding after teachers. We got the Grossmont District on line 2. We got the San Diego Unified District on line 3.
If you had only been his agent, he would have. If you had been older,
that'd work.
Because you are shrewd. I've been there.
Pre-game tonight at 6. Tip-off at 7. You'll hear the game right here on The Zone. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NBA.
Giannis holds it, right side of the lane. He's got Paul doing jumping jacks around him. He's going to fade off 1 foot, and he knocks down the jumper.
Alvarado takes off and drives on Williams, bounces off of him. Ball hits off of his chest. He picks it back up, throws it into traffic, stolen by Williams. 3-on-1. Simons leads the pass to Abdiu, dunks it in.
Garland looking. Garland now dribbles to the top of the three-point arc. Backs up, 30 to go. Garland into the paint, floats, automatic! DG! Into the lane. He never misses.
The Cleveland Cavaliers at home beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in the showdown of the night, 129-122. A miserable shooting night for Donovan Mitchell, 3 of 16 for 11 points. But Evan Mobley and Jared Allen come through big time, and Cleveland gets the win. Missing Chet Holmgren there?
Yeah, but
a little more size and length.
If I were OKC, it was a competitive game virtually to the end, and I watched most of it. And Cleveland hit a couple shots there, and you're sitting there without your Stork over there, who's really good. I don't know what his timeline is for returning. It's a good game, good entertaining game. As just a fan of the game rather than individual teams, I enjoyed that game.
The rematch is a week from tonight. Cleveland will go to Oklahoma City, and they will play again on TNT. So you get another look at that, a potential NBA Finals matchup there.
If Holmgren, is he back for the postseason, or is he out? I mean, I don't know what his deal is.
I don't know how long he's going to be gone.
But, he's a nice player for them. So hopefully both teams are at full strength. If you told me right now these two teams are in the finals,
and you're going to play 6 or 7 games that look like that?
As a fan, I'm in.
Yeah.
I don't care this market, that market, what the TV rating is. None of that matters to me. As a fan, I would be very much interested in watching that series.
The Pelicans came through in a game that sounded a little winnable. They were playing Portland. Portland got the win. Pelicans take the loss, 119-100. New Orleans with the worst record in the West, sitting on 7 victories. So one of the teams Jazz fans need to keep an eye on in the Tankathon 2025.
I guess they're not going to have Zion go back-to-back because he didn't play.
Denver Nuggets beat the Clippers. They're 6 games over 500, but a little separated out from the elite in the West, sitting in the 4th spot. Bucks beat the Spurs 121-105. The San Antonio rebuild project continues, but no victories against Milwaukee. Spurs bouncing around 500 this year. Giannis with 25 points and 16 boards, and the Bucks get the win. I know they're former champs, but they're a 500 team themselves, aren't they? Not really believing in them against Cleveland or Boston in the playoffs.
Yeah, but that was 4 years ago.
Yep.
Now.
They've never gotten... I guess you got to get it when you have the chance and you're there because you don't know if that opportunity's coming around. They haven't been that close. The Orlando Magic, who've been hit with numerous injuries this year, are set to get their star forward Paolo Banchero back from a torn oblique. He's expected to play tonight or tomorrow after being out since October 30th with the injury. He had a 50-point game. 2 days later, he gets hurt, and he's been out since Halloween.
No joke.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag college basketball.
Tonight, UVU hosting Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon 11-4, 1-0 in league play. UVU 9-6, 1-0 in league play. Big game in Orem tonight, 6 o'clock. Southern Utah plays host to Tarleton State at 6, and Utah Tech welcomes UT Arlington to St. George. So, a little college hoops for you tonight.
All I got to say, man, is don't play them freshmen.
Don't do it.
No. If I'm Duke, I'd pretty much bench Cooper Flagg.
That a kid. Rutgers is playing tonight. If you want to scout them, they are hosting Purdue, 4 o'clock on FS1. So, an early game tonight. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
There's some people alleging that it was a purposeful letting get your ass
I ain't
kicked.
scared of nobody.
I'm not alleging this.
I wanted them in the
Not
playoffs.
alleging this.
I want to slay every dragon one by one, like Mortal Kombat. I don't even want this to be like we play the lowest seed. Just give me the best teams.
I'm not, Travis. I'm just telling you what
AFC,
people are
NFC.
saying.
Give
I'm
me
not
all of
saying
them,
this.
Mortal
People-
Kombat style. I'll go through
people are
every one of them, just giving them my best effort. I ain't scared of a single soul, man.
You didn't want to see the Bengals in Burrowhead or in Cincinnati.
I'll play them at the Walmart parking lot. I don't give a we can have our own game in the offseason. Where we really duke it out again. I love competing against the greatest. The Bengals were a fun-ass team to watch there towards the end of the season.
That's the Kelsey brothers there, and Chiefs tight end Travis Kelsey addressing the thought that, hey, we'll just lose this game to Denver, knock Cincinnati out of the playoffs because we don't want to have to deal with Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
What's with all the swearing? Does he got to prove he's a tough guy?
Yep.
You're dating Taylor Swift. You're not that tough. Come on. You're going overboard here. Why don't you get a big dog next?
Yeah, and a truck,
Jeez.
and a big hat. What else? Boots.
I don't think they were worried about who they were playing. I think they were resting guys.
Yep.
There are no dragons. If you're Kansas City, there are no dragons to slay.
You are the dragon. You are the dragon.
Yeah, so
Right.
cool to be fake tough and all, but everyone's looking at you.
49ers general manager John Lynch says the Niners are hoping to move quickly to secure a long-term extension with quarterback Brock Purdy. I think what we know about Brock is that he's our guy. We have interest in Brock being around here for a long, long time. He's done so much for our organization. Is he going to break the bank over $60 million or more? Leave him in a cap room? How much less is he willing to take?
You got to pay whatever the price is. Yeah. I mean, it's the way it goes.
Dak Prescott gets $60 million. I get $60 million. NFL's monitoring the wildfire situations in Southern California, but hoping to play the wild card game between the Vikings and Rams at SoFi Stadium on Monday night. If conditions force the game to be relocated, it will be played in Glendale, Arizona. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
College football playoff semifinals begin tonight in the Orange Bowl as Notre Dame takes on Penn State. Kickoff 5:30 on ESPN. Winner to the championship game. Who's it gonna be? I suspect it'd be Penn State, but I'd prefer to be Notre Dame.
Why do you think Penn State's better?
Just don't trust Notre Dame's their ability to throw the ball. It's an inability to throw the ball, and at some point I think that's got to catch up with them here. They run it, and they run it really well, and their speed, man, it's awesome, but it just feels a little one-dimensional. At some point I think that catches up with them.
And Penn State's not one-dimensional?
Not to the same degree, I wouldn't think, no. I mean, I don't think either one of them are good enough to beat Ohio State when they get to the final. I watched the Ohio State-Penn State regular season game, a big chunk of it. Not that thrilled about a rematch. Don't think Penn State can do that, but
rematch,
it'll be what it'll be.
Whatever. We have that in all the other sports.
And we may get it here.
This is pro sports now.
Yep.
No, the rematch didn't bother me.
Who are you expecting to win tonight?
I'm going Notre Dame, man.
Irish.
They run the ball so well. We're the best running team out there this side of Air Force.
And they do run it well. DJ and PK.
Hashtag golf.
The Sony Open, the 60th edition, 60 years now in Hawaii. And they're at the Waialae Country Club once again on Oahu. Patrick Fishburne, the only local in the field. They get underway today. They're going to go low, aren't they? They usually go low on that course. Probably not as low as they went last week.
I mean, they go low on the entire western swing.
Yeah. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NHL.
Onto the ice in the high slot, a diving shot, and they score! Boquist bags it past Karel Vejmelka. Vlad Kolyachonok didn't have a stick, and it cost Utah. Cooley, side of the net. Cooley scores! Logan Cooley in the power play breaks through here in the third, and Utah has cut the lead in half. Puck on the near side, it's Boquist out to center towards the empty net. Oh, he scores! Bad luck by Utah, and what a play by Jesper Boquist. He gets his second goal of the game, and it makes it 3-1. I can't believe it.
And they had another empty netter. 4-1. The Panthers win. A scoreless first period. Man, that was as physical a game as they played in a while. Panthers were out there just decking guys left and right. And we watched it on TNT last night. They had the in between the periods, the crew's like, well, Utah's got to come out and they got to push back. They can't just keep taking this, but they can't come out and take a penalty either. And sure enough, they came out, took a penalty, gave up a power play, and they were chasing the game the rest of the night.
I don't watch in between, so I just watch the games. Yeah. I don't care what they have to say. I want to see the sport being played. I mean, I am tired of listening to people talk about sports.
The irony.
I thought they had their chances in the second period to get some on the board and maybe even get a lead, but it wasn't happening for them. And then the 2 goals at the end make it look worse than it was.
Yep.
Scoring margin doesn't really matter. What's the difference?
Vejmelka, yeah, they score 4 goals, but Vejmelka only allows 1 in at full strength. And Utah's goal was on the power play as well. Utah off today. Jazz will be playing the Heat tonight in the arena, and they're back on the ice tomorrow night at the Delta Center. San Jose, a little more manageable opponent from one end of the standings to the other.
Tomorrow is the halfway point. Now, some teams are already there, but for the hockey club, it is tomorrow. I think is their 41st game.
What is Trending is brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Coming up, Ken Pomeroy is going to join us, owner of KenPom.com, college basketball analytics guru. He will join us at 8:30. Cole Bagley, Hockey Club insider for The Zone, at 9 o'clock. The question of the day is next. Stay with us.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Oregon's undefeated regular season meant zilch. They might as well have taken a knee and lost to Boise. Who cares?
Why?
Ohio State, who's lost 2 games, including a brutal loss to Michigan, is alive, and Oregon, who is undefeated during the entire regular season, is not. Those games mean significantly less than they used to. Part of the magic of college football was every single darn game mattered if you wanted to win a national championship.
I'm not sure your argument holds up under the sense that if this was the BCS, Oregon would have been one of the teams that was automatically there.
Yeah, sweet. Great. They had an undefeated regular season. They should have been rewarded for that. They won more games than anybody else.
They were rewarded with a bye week. They had a bye.
Give me a break. If people are still arguing on social media that bye actually worked against them.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, the NHL is at the halfway point of the season. How much are you into the Utah Hockey Club? Daniel, meh. Probably would care more if I could afford tickets to actually watch a game.
How many Jazz games do you go to? How many whatever you're a fan of do you go to? I mean, the folks who go to the game are just a small part of the base, aren't they?
Yes. Matthew, watched a couple of games on TV, followed the team's social media accounts, checked box scores regularly, attending our first game Saturday against the Islanders.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's plenty good to be in. doing all those things.
Brett, some of my friends really like it. I may eventually go to a game. I'm suffering through Utah hoops. I've tuned out of the Utah Jazz. I'm waiting for Utah football to start back up. Go Utes!
Well, you got 9 months, man. We just got done.
Some more games. About that 30-game college football season I need. Brooks says, I love hockey. I've been following UHC in the standings. I went to a game with my sons. It was great. Don't know how soon I'll be going to another game, though. The tickets were very expensive. Thought they were supposedly going to be more affordable than the Jazz. Not even close to being affordable.
No, I have no idea what they're paying.
Everybody's definition of affordable is different.
Well, but affordable and expensive can be both. Well, just because they're affordable doesn't mean they're not expensive.
Not expensive.
If you're making more money or what have you, or the best of, you've inherited more money.
All right.
That's the best way to get rich. You do nothing. Born into it, like you were.
What?
Compared to me? Oh, I would have killed to be on your side of the tracks. Indoor plumbing?
You were in New Jersey in an outhouse.
Back in New Jersey.
So you can have both. You can have it affordable and be expensive. Which, yeah, tell me a sport that you go to that's cheap.
It's got to be minor leagues. That's.
Yeah. Some people paying to go to high school is a lot.
Yeah.
Depending on what your situation is. And so I don't scoff at that whatsoever. But I don't think that going to games defines your fandom.
Following the games, reading the box scores, listening to them on the radio, watch them on TV. There's lots of ways to follow it.
I mean,
These
I was
days,
a Dodger fan growing up. And when I moved to Phoenix, and we didn't have baseball, and I was used to having the Yankees and Mets on. Somebody was on TV literally every day with the two teams, and then I move out to the desert, and you just get the game of the week. And then about 15 years old, I discovered that they're on the radio. So I listen. I grew up my teen years listening to Vin and his guys, but I didn't go to a game until I was in my 20s. But it
didn't
take
stop
away,
you from being a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had that, what was it? Who was the guy? Benny something. You can give them $10 and they give you all these things and they don't advertise it. Sign up for the this or that, and I did. And you get the yearbook and, they send you stuff. So there's other ways.
So it's like some kind of fan club deal or something.
Yeah. What was his name? I can remember talking to Tom Hofarth about it because he grew up in the L.A. area and he was a hardcore Dodger fan, and we both did that because, all the games weren't on TV back then. Now, where I lived, none of them were, but even in Southern California.
LA, right. They were televising home games in that
So
era.
you end up listening to the radio a lot. What was his name? I think his last name was Goodman, and it was like a fan club for kids, you know what I mean? And I did that. So just because you don't go to the games, a lot of people can't. They literally can't afford them, or they've got to work or whatever, and they got lives to live. Man, it's hard to be able to go.
And you got to get up and go to work, and the TNT game starts after 8:00 and finishes about 11.
Yeah, and I was a hardcore baseball fan growing up back east, and I didn't root for the teams, Yankees and Mets, but I could tell you everything about them. I could tell you everything about the Knicks, everything. I mean, they were on TV. I think the Knicks games were on TV, the home games too. But if I went to 3 games a year, that was a lot because it was somebody else had tickets or what have you, and you get to go. And I had this enormous family with my father having 7 siblings and my mother having 9. So and they knew I was almost from birth. You wonder how you end up being a sports fan, how some guys aren't and some guys are. How does that work? I was drawn to it from the earliest ages.
I was drawn to it at such an early age, I don't know how it works. As far as I know, I just always loved watching games. My dad was watching games. I was watching games.
But playing, too. It wasn't just watching.
And I don't really remember a time that I didn't have. I do remember that we got a basketball hoop in our driveway when I was in the 3rd grade. But I don't remember a time that I didn't have a baseball glove or a football or a baseball or a bat.
You had one in the crib, man. You were bouncing it off the wall.
That seems unlikely due to the stringent safety standards of the Sniggledorfs. But nonetheless, your point is taken at a very early age. You were asking about how much are tickets, and I just looked them up while you were talking there.
Of course, you're always looking up stuff while
I know,
I'm
and this
talking.
was perfect.
And I'm surprised you even paid attention this time.
Well, once in a while. You can get the most expensive ticket on StubHub for the San Jose game, the next game, which might be a little less expensive. I mean, Florida's the defending Stanley Cup champs, and the Sharks are at the bottom of the standings. But the next game, $455 to sit behind the goal is the most expensive ticket I see. In the lower bowl, I see tickets for $113 and $92. Now, he said his sons, does he have to buy 4 and keep it even because he has 3 boys? I don't know how many tickets
no,
you
just
need,
take your favorite kid.
All right. Who's my favorite? Who's going to be good today?
Who's your favorite kid? Well, you have one, so quit lying.
Oh, you can rotate through them, too. In the upper bowl, there's some expensive stuff in the upper bowl. That may be a luxury suite. I can't read this properly. But there's tickets under $100 in the upper bowl. Here's 44, 47, 58. There's a couple in the 30s. Now there's fees on top of this, so you're not really getting out of there for $36.
No, it's the fees.
You do this stuff. How high are the fees? If you see 36, did you assume 50? How much are they piling on?
I've never purchased a sporting event through that.
Man, but you've done concerts. I assume the fees are the same.
I don't know if they are.
Oh, okay.
I don't assume anything. When you're trained at the foot of Walter
there
Cronkite,
it is.
you
right.
assume nothing as a fact until you verify it. So I don't know if they're the same. They can be anywhere from 50 to 100. You think Marketing and Hardy paid that much?
No, I don't think they paid a thing. I think they just walked in and said, "Hi, I'm Will Hardy."
It's amazing. People who are
I'm
rich don't have to pay stuff. Does this make any sense? That's the way it is. Thank you, Walter. Yeah. So, Hatback was giving an interview.
Yep.
Had the hat straight. Had the gear on. Exciting times. But people can figure out what they can afford. But that doesn't mean that you're not a fan. Good for you if you can go to the game. I was talking to a friend the other night who was at the Jazz game, and he was there entertaining clients. Are they fans? Come on. It's a business prop.
Yep.
So I'm more of the people who don't go to games but are still into it. And I think it's got a solid fan base. And as far as following it, I don't really think that takes a lot. You watch, by game 20, you got an idea who the guys are. And then you got a decent little foundation. And then you can build it up from there. So I think it's fairly easy.
Learn a little bit here, learn a little bit there.
Yeah.
Watch the interviews, listen to the interviews.
Yeah, you can read stuff.
Coach will teach you stuff about how he wants them to play the game as he talks.
You know who the people are. So it's easy to get attached to them, I think. You don't have to be an expert on how to play the game and all this stuff. And then that's for the folks the people who do it for a living, and then the wannabe media members who think they are way into it, and so they know. Good for them. But you can it doesn't take that long to get involved. I can name you the guys.
David, not a fan. No clue how to watch them. ESPN Plus is always blacked out.
It is.
They protect the local broadcasts. Unless it's an ESPN Plus exclusive.
Yeah. That sucks.
Adam says, I love it. I've been twice. I have an over-the-air antenna and Dish Network adapter so I can record games. I watch them all.
Good. Yeah, I didn't realize they weren't on Comcast till you told me that they weren't.
Right.
I don't understand that. I don't know why.
The station they're on isn't carried by Comcast. They don't have a deal for whatever reason.
They can get one.
There's either that or the contract will be up soon enough, and we'll see. I think every station in the market's going to bid for
I
them.
see what you're doing there. All right, now it's making sense.
Excuse me.
Every station in the market's going to bid for him.
There's a certain
I don't think BYU
entity
TV is going to bid it for him, so I would disagree on that.
The 4 over-the-air stations in the market, the main 4 are going to bid for them.
Well, who you decide who the main 4 are?
I did.
Granted you power to be deciding that. I watch BYU TV, BYU Sports Nation. It airs at 1 o'clock Eastern.
I don't think the PBS stations are going to try to carry the games.
Well, but you said the over-the-air stations, and I take you for what the words mean.
Your Fox, your NBC, your CBS, and your ABC. I think we're all going to be looking for opportunities.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so Hatback going to make more money?
Seems likely.
Nice.
Seems likely.
That's what he needs.
Remember when I told you once about it? If you want that, you better have leverage. Have another offer.
So he's going to have 4 bidders?
That's my expectation.
When's it up?
He will. I've been told 2 different things, so I don't know. I think it's up based on who told me different things. I think it's up at the end of the season, but it might be another year.
So whatever they have could change.
They had to carry over their deal that they had in Arizona with that company because that company has a station here also.
I understand that.
So,
although they could go back to that.
They could. That's one of.
I would like to see it be on for
folks
folks who have Comcast. I'd like to see it be on and have that exposure to that. It's so difficult for me to grasp that you have a local team and I have a local cable company or whatever, and I don't get it. I can literally live right across the street, and I don't get it. I don't get that you can't get it. That boggles the old mind as to why that is. So whatever they do, I hope that it's available for everybody who wants to watch it. And if this guy here buys an ESPN Plus subscription and then can't get it and wants to watch it, that stinks.
The over-the-air antenna can provide a lot of sports because it'll give you all the hockey games, it'll give you all the Jazz games, tons of NFL and college football. There's actually quite a bit of sports out there for free if you have one of those. Not everything you want.
For free. You got to buy a television. You got to buy
the antenna.
And then you got to have an engineering degree to figure out how to use the antenna.
Or a neighbor with an engineering degree like you.
I mean, how do you do that? Do you get an over-the-air spiel?
I assume it comes with directions, but I don't know because I don't have it.
As a guy who's done it before, it does have instructions with it.
Yeah,
there it is.
And if you're inclined to do that, it's easy. How many times have I heard, it's easy? Yeah, it's easy for you.
Yeah, I know, but it's not for all of us.
For the low fee of...
That's like, yeah.
Yuck, you got a consulting company? You can come... Yuck could swing by.
He's in the traffic world now. Leave him alone.
Excuse me.
That's like, does your dog bite? Well, no. Well, of course he doesn't bite you. It's so simple. It's easy. Yeah, it is for you. I mean, it is for other folks. And where do you get this over-the-air antenna? It's not as easy as it seems, and you don't even have one, so how the crap would you know?
I bought mine at Walmart.
Walmart. I've been told R.C. Willie has them. I think you can call around. You can find him.
Really?
Yep.
That means you got to have a phone. You just all these assumptions of the privileged.
Mm-hmm.
The affluent. Just, again, the affluent telling us that life is so simple.
Use the landline.
Isn't that ironic?
Use the landline at work.
I don't have a landline.
At work?
Oh, I don't know. I never used a phone here. You got to dial this one, and then boom. Next thing you know, you're dialing some number they don't want, and they catch it, and they fire you. I'm not going to risk it.
Yeah, things fell apart for you pretty quickly there.
Could happen.
It was an ugly scenario.
Right. And all of a sudden, you find yourself in a trap? Whew, bad news. Well, I look forward to that hockey night with David James. Did you go over to the arena and found that people really like it and you can do this?
No, I already knew it.
Is it time for a manifesto?
I already knew it.
I'm off next week, and so if you want, and then I won't be there to interrupt you.
You're not going to be off next week. You already told me.
Hockey night with the Snigs. I like it, man. Whose job you after now?
Nobody's. It's not going to happen. You're just making stuff up.
We never thought you would be the voice of RSL, but yet you are.
Yeah, that's true.
And you ramrodded people and pushed them the crap out of the way to get it.
It's not exactly how it happened.
Depending on who you talk to, you just said, I've talked to 2 different sources. So I think, depending on who you talk to, I think that is true.
Yeah.
I just quoted you.
Dan Quinton moved to Portland. There's the story.
Dan who?
You know who.
Well, that'll be cool. I hope it gets available, whatever they decide. Because I think it's important. It's a community asset, and
it makes it available to a broader community.
Yeah, and then I just think the community, then it's looked about, wow, that's Salt Lake City area, man. That's a big-time sports area. And who knows, as the Millers try to get the MLB, I think all that stuff helps. That you get excited about it. And I think there's enough folks here that aren't from California that can be fans of here. Like, we know with the Jazz, there's so many Californians, and oh my gosh, they love their Lakers, they love their Dodgers, and those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll always be there. But I think that those folks, like for instance, my sisters, they moved to Arizona in their 20s, a long time ago now, but their kids are born in the Valley.
They don't have the Jersey thing.
No.
Arizona's their home
state. A little bit of an
attitude.
attitude. You can't help it. But in terms of their allegiances,
it's to the Phoenix teams.
Yeah. So I think we have that here. So as you go forward,
the first generation moves to town and they bring their Dodger, Laker, Warrior, whatever fandom to town.
Yeah.
And then the next generation, more likely to root for the local team.
Yeah, in Arizona, it's more widespread. You'll have the Steelers or the Bears or like the freaking Cubs in spring training. Oh, my gosh.
They pack the place.
I mean, it's just trying to get a Cubs ticket in spring training. You got to plan the second they come out. So, but I don't know that we have that here as much because people don't come to Utah, or at least this area, to live in warm weather.
I was surprised because I was at when the Calgary Flames came to town. I was surprised how many Calgary fans. I would say there were at least 1,000 Calgary fans, easy to identify, standing up cheering, wearing the team sweater, jersey. And there may have been more. Maybe not everybody was decked out, but I mean, there were. It was stunning. I mean, Calgary scored, and it was pretty loud.
But doesn't some of those places in Canada, don't they have a higher level of LDS people?
Calgary for sure.
That might be inclined to move here or go to school here.
Southern Alberta has got a heavy LDS population.
Is that what it is? That's what I thought. Yeah. I thought I'd heard that somewhere along
the line. We got a guy here, Scotty. I'll be way into the Utah Hockey Club when my St. Louis Blues come to town next week.
Yeah, but that's okay. Their money counts just as well.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want a high preponderance of it. Then it gets awkward.
Yeah.
But I don't think we'll have that. And in future generations, we won't have that. So from my perspective, it seems like it's going well. And it doesn't take long to figure out when you start throwing out 20 years old, 21 years old, all these young dudes, and they're already there making an impact in this league. It doesn't take long to figure out, hey, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, where does this trend over 5 years?
This team's got a shot to be competitive. I mean, they're already competitive, but I mean, being really competitive to make a run at the thing. And having been in Las Vegas a number of times for other reasons when the Knights were doing their thing, it was incredible to see people, how jacked they were. Now, I think, that Vegas folks were so starved for big time. And that was their first
taste
really
of it.
Local, where we've had college football at the highest levels, and we've had the Jazz at the highest level. So I don't think we're as starved for it. But everybody loves a winner in every sport. It doesn't matter what it is.
That was their first one. Then they got the Raiders, and now 3 years away from getting MLB.
Yeah, And hockey, it'll be. It may not be to the. So they just assume they're in the Western Conference Finals, and they'll get there at some point, with 3 to 5 years or whatever it might be, and then the town will just be electric for it. My sister, after she got out of college, stayed back in the southern part of New Jersey, which is the suburbs of Philadelphia. And if you remember, if you do the timeline, the Flyers were really hot, and she said that's all everybody talked about. When they were having the Broad Street Bullies and all those guys doing their thing, and it just really captured the community. It may not be the level of the Jazz, but I think it'd be pretty close.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Big game tonight. What to expect from the national semifinal? That is next, and we're talking Utes at 8 o'clock right here on The Zone.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Bill Armstrong kind enough to join us. When they got out to a hot start, you said, hey, this might be a little bit more than where we're at. And then when you lose a few, you're like, this isn't who we are either. Is this kind of where you expected your team to be at this point in the season?
This is exactly where I expected us to be. Right in the hunt, right in the thick of things, with a great schedule in front of us. And the thing that we look forward to on the inside is that we haven't really had our whole team on the ice together. You know, Jersey's been injured, Marino's been injured, Ingram's out now, along with Lamoureux and Bortuzzo. So we really haven't had our best lineup on that ice, and that's what I look forward to coming down the stretch, is when we need to have our best on that ice, we have a chance. Guys are coming back from being injured, and it's going to be exciting times for us just to see everybody on that ice and see how good we can be in the big moments down the stretch.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The band of the day today is the Dave Matthews Band. Founder Dave Matthews celebrates his 57th birthday. It's brought to you by Live Nation. For all the live concerts and events in 2025, check out livenation.com.
Where are you going?
Going to watch the college football game tonight. Notre Dame and Penn State national semifinal. What do you want to see?
I am no hero, that's for sure.
Russell doesn't want to see any heroes in this game. I want to see both these teams lose.
But I do know one thing.
Sounds like Russell likes underdogs.
Is where you are, is where I want to be. You going? Go ahead, talk sports.
Brady, all I ask is a good game. He's got no emotional buy-in. Sounds like you. He wants a good game. He's got no emotional buy-in.
No, I'll be rooting for Notre Dame.
No, you got a little emotional buy-in tonight.
Pops.
Yeah.
The great Beyond. Took my parents to Notre Dame, the wildest trip I've ever taken in my life.
I had a lot of crazy things happen.
Right from the start.
Came back with stories.
Right from the start. I flew him up here, and then we flew on Delta over there to Chicago, and I told him to stay right by the gate, and I'll come get you, and then I'll take you to the gate that we need to go to Chicago. Right from the start, from Phoenix to here, and I go to the gate, and they're not there.
Good times.
Oh, brother. One thing after another.
Is that the trip where you're in Chicago, and your mom realizes that people in the store buying the Cubs gear know you?
Yeah.
Ain't that the bleep?
Across the store to my father. Yeah. I couldn't prepare them for
BYU fans are going to know who you are.
Yeah, because it's...
And you're not the only one who flew to Chicago and then drove to the game.
Everybody did.
Right.
Maybe you went to Indy, but most folks take Chicago. So, yeah, and the plane was packed, coming and going with BYU fans there. So, yeah, I'm not really a hardcore fan, but if I had to choose... And growing up, Penn State was like the second team in the area because there's so many Italian people, and Paterno obviously was one of them. And so you had that going on. But, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it plays out, because it's hard to judge statistically. You look at, like, the pros. oh, they're 27th in this rating and 14th in that rating. All right. I think it's more legitimate because the schedules are all basically the same. Your contemporaries are playing the same teams, basically the same amount. In college, it's just wildly different.
You don't have that common ground.
Yeah. And so you speak of, you look at Notre Dame and not throwing the ball. Well, if you're just pounding the ball on the ground, why would you throw it? And, they've got 3 guys that ran for at least 700 yards. That's pretty good. And they're averaging, they got like 5 guys averaging over 5 yards a carry. What does that mean? Does that mean they're not that good at passing, or they just didn't have to pass it as much? And obviously, Penn State has got a great tight end. I mean, he might be the best tight end in the whole college game, in this Warren kid, and they feature him. You'll see him. He'll be featured right from the start. He really is a dynamic player for sure. And so you're looking at that and say, okay, well, they have the opportunity to throw him the ball. Yeah, so to get him the ball. But at the same time, they run the ball really well, too. I think they've got 2,000-yard rushers. But who are they playing? The Big Ten, I can argue, might be the most two-sided conference, meaning you got really good teams and you got really crappy teams.
So instead of two-sided, go with top-heavy.
No.
Okay.
Because
yeah, 3 great teams at the top, but nothing there.
But see, the SEC is top-heavy too, but those teams in the middle and at the bottom can get you. That's why I didn't go top-heavy, because that implies to me that the teams at the bottom have no shot.
So the Big Ten is a donut. There's nothing in the middle.
Well, you don't seem to get the upsets like we had this year with Vanderbilt and Oklahoma beating.
You had Michigan beating Ohio State, but after that,
but that's a rivalry game, man.
Right, and after that, there were 4 teams that didn't have bad losses. I mean, they just didn't. There were the 4 combined for 1 bad loss, and it was the rivalry game.
Which, the cliche on throwing the records out and that. They haven't beaten those guys in 4 years.
Well, Notre Dame is playing Kyle Whittingham-style football.
Yeah.
You can go to the point of comment. That defense doesn't give up points. There are 2 exceptions, so I shouldn't say doesn't give up points. A USC game went 49-35. That thing was high-scoring. And they had a 31-24 game with Louisville. But mostly, they're holding people to 10, 13, 14 points. And they held Georgia to 10 in the last playoff game.
But Texas was only averaging 13. The Devils put 28 on them in regulation. Especially, and when the game was on the line, they had no problem moving the ball. Funny, earlier in the game they had problem. Later in the game, but I just think my point is the college statistics comparing one to another, because they don't have all these common opponents. It seems like it's a little bit misleading or not accurate, not true. Do you really know what's going to happen when they get in that situation? There's no doubt that both these teams are good. I'm not saying that by any stretch.
They wouldn't be here.
Right.
And there's a whole thing, Notre Dame didn't play anybody, and look at their schedule. And even the Georgia Tech probably got a lot of respect because they battled Georgia pretty well. But
they had a decent season. Yeah.
They did, right. But you play Florida State, and they turn out not to be very good, and you're playing USC, and they turn out to be incredibly mediocre.
Yeah,
and
but that's a rivalry game, too.
You play Purdue, and they're terrible. And they're playing 2 service academies. And those teams had good years.
This year.
Yeah, good years. Decent G5 teams. Good G5 teams. But still, I get why people said, no, who'd Notre Dame play? Why are they? Well, now they played 2 playoff games, and they did just fine, and the defense looked like it looked all year long. I mean, they did give up 17 to Indiana, but they only gave up 10 when it mattered. Indiana got a late one on them that didn't really impact
I don't
game.
look at their schedule and say they haven't proven anything, because of the fact I have to include the 2 playoff games.
Oh, yeah. The playoff games, everyone stopped talking about that. At 11-1, it was a decent talking point, but now it's not.
And, to me, they always have one of the better schedules because they play USC. Now, they can't, it's not their fault if USC's up or down. Most of the time, historically, they're up. And then they usually play another good game, and they had Texas A&M. And, that's up to Texas A&M where they're up and down. And then they have the scheduling agreement with the ACC, so they get these teams. So what are you going to do? To me, it's if the teams aren't good that you play, that may not be your fault. Now, if you're like Rich Rod, he came on our air one time when they were playing BYU. And I don't want to play BYU. I basically said, I want 3 cupcakes.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
That's not the exact quote, but that was clearly what he meant.
Right.
And he wouldn't debate that with us now. Nope. I want 3 W's. Give me the wins and let's go.
Right. Well, if you don't do that, if you play a decent named team and they turn out not to be good, that's on them, not you.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. It's time for a turnaround. It's been time for a turnaround. It's getting worse, not better. What can be done? That's next.
Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nominations at KSLSports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week. And it's sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
The University of Utah, 0-3 in the Big 12. They've been blown out in all 3 Big 12 basketball games. What's got to change for success? Cougar fans really enjoyed this question. Michael, I thought Utah fans said the Big 12 would be a cakewalk.
Yeah, but I think that was for football.
That was for football. I don't think I heard a single Utah fan say they're going to dominate in basketball.
I don't think it's a cakewalk for Houston, Kansas, Iowa State, the better teams in this conference. It's not a cakewalk. They'll do well, but it's not going to be easy. You still got to ball out. And Utah, this is not good.
Brady, but I thought they were going to run the conference. Again, football, Brady.
Skiing, gymnastics.
Don says they need to move to the new Pac-12. Well, that's going to have Gonzaga and San Diego State and Utah State.
And some team like called Utah State who's
good, and they don't want to play them for obvious reasons. Obvious reason.
They're not like Travis Kelce. Let's go in the parking lot.
They do not want to go in the parking lot.
They do not want to play Utah State.
Jared Calhoun came on the air and told us, offered 2-for-1s, offered to start on the road there. No.
Really?
You were sitting right there. You heard it.
Yeah, but you're making it seem like they're afraid of them. The way not wanting to play them and not wanting to play them because they're going to beat us are 2 different things. And I'm getting the impression that you're leaning towards the latter.
I am leaning towards the latter.
Right. And I did not. That is news to me.
Why do you think they don't want to play him?
I don't know. Why did they not want to play whomever? They just don't. They don't see any advantage in it.
They want guaranteed wins. They don't want to play quad 1 games where they might lose.
Well, some of those quad 1 losses are better than some of the quad 4 wins.
I don't know that I buy that.
I don't buy that at all.
He doesn't buy that at all.
He does traffic. I understand.
Coming up momentarily.
That's just what we're going to say every time you talk now, Yak.
It's not my fault.
So what do you guys buy? You don't buy that. I'm a simpleton. There's probably a more complicated.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
Okay.
Let me push you back to the conversation you had about BYU basketball the other day. You were talking about the fact that BYU didn't test themselves in the non-conference schedule, and it's affected them going into the Big 12.
I believe that, yes.
Well, I think Utah has the same problem. They feasted on lesser competition, and they're getting absolutely boat raced right now by better competition.
Yeah, I think
that's true, but that doesn't go to why they didn't schedule Utah State.
They would have been smoked no matter what. They're not good.
Okay.
I believe that too. I just don't think they're good enough.
Right. I don't know what they've got. Who's a player that stands out? I don't care who stood out against Radford and Florida A&M and Eastern Washington and Mississippi Valley and Utah Tech. In Central Arkansas and Alcorn State. I don't care. That doesn't matter to me. I call those Big Sky type games, and you aren't playing Big Sky level competition. Who stands out in the Big 12 that can be played. They don't have enough players.
There it is. So when you ask what has to change, I assume that's NIL. Because what we hear is NIL drives the transfers and drives the recruits of the elite freshmen and that. And it's an elite conference. Everybody's saying the Big 12 is the number one this year. There's lots of numbers that says the SEC is. And coming up in our very next segment, we can run all of that past Ken Pomeroy from kenpom.com. He'll join us next. Do they have enough NIL? I think that's where it starts. We have people posting, well, here come the fire Craig Smith posts. Well, when teams don't win enough, coaches, they get fired. But he's won 20-plus games 5 years in a row coming to Utah. It looked like a good hire. He had all NCAA tournament quality teams. What? I know. So I don't think it comes down to, can you coach? I think he can coach. I don't think they have. The point. I think they don't have good enough players. And so what needs to be done, I think they need more NIL money because I don't know how else you get better players. I don't feel like, and we don't really know about the NIL, but I don't look at those players and think they spent a lot of NIL on those guys and they misidentified them. That could be a problem. I don't think that's the problem in this case.
Hey, this is from the Deseret News, Mark Harlan. I feel like our NIL for basketball is very healthy.
Well, then we can go back to Here Come Fire, Craig Smith.
That's a direct quote.
Right. So if that's true, and it doesn't really matter if it's true, if the AD believes it's true, then it's true. So then that's going to point at the coach. Because he thinks in that case, the AD thinks the coach has what he needs to win.
I feel like our NIL for basketball is very healthy, and I'm reading from the Deseret News. Mm-hmm. It's a dramatic increase this year. That's why we saw talented student-athletes come to the University of Utah along with their desire to play here. So I'm pleased, but we know there's never enough. But you have to be able to say, okay, this is enough to field a very competitive roster, and I think that's exactly what we have in our men's basketball program. Mm. So the boss is refuting what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't bode well for Craig. Because then I think the next thing would be to look at the coach. Now, maybe not. Maybe Mark will come out and say something else.
Well, he's in the fourth year of a 6-year deal, and do they want to buy him out?
A good question. I do not know the answer to that.
Well, no, they don't. Will they? You've got to get better players. And the problem here, you lost, like Smith looked like he was onto something. Devion Smith, I'm speaking, and then he leaves.
Right.
And Keita goes to BYU. Wooster, who was injured most of the last season, went to Nebraska. But, your big thing, somehow, if you're 23, that means you're really good. Those are all veteran guys. And
Gone.
But, they won 20 games or so last year, but a lot of that was padded in the NIT.
Right. They were 500 in the league the last 2 years. They had a 10-10 and a 9-11 in their last 2 years in the Pac-12.
Well, at least they were good at home.
Right. That's really it was a very clean break last year, home and away. I think they were 17-2 at the Huntsman Center last season.
But their first home game
did not go well.
No.
I mean, they have a good looking home record right now, but again, that goes back to Florida A&M and Radford.
And I view it, the fans speak, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of enthusiasm around the program right now whatsoever. And in speaking with Chris Hill, that's what he felt like when he made the difficult decision to replace Ron McBride. He understood the popularity of Ron McBride. And speaking with Chris at the time after it was done, in a one-on-one conversation, you could see the anguish in his face. Now, it turned out it was a bonanza. But this was right afterward.
That doesn't mean it's easy in the moment.
And we didn't know what Urban was going to do. He hadn't done it yet.
And even
this was before the first game.
But even if he suspected it in the moment,
yeah, it was very difficult for that man to do what he did. And I can remember the conversation. You could hear the pain in his voice. But he said there was not any momentum around the program. And that's what's dangerous. Because once you start getting into the apathetic range, then that's negative. See, like you had with BYU when they were losing those 3 seasons, there wasn't apathy. There was anger. And there are so many ex-players and fans on the street, if I was wherever I was, because I was a watchdog beat guy at the time. I was doing the radio, so I had a little bit of following, and people knew who I was. And my gosh, I was just, I don't want to say I'm blown away, but impressed in a negative sense about the amount of commitment people had to that program. Just furious about what was happening. So obviously they made that move. Here, I sense more of an apathetic. Now, I'm not there every day like I was 20 years ago. So
but you turn on the TV and you see the empty red seats.
Yeah, and I went to a game
or you
this
stream
year,
and you see the empty
red
seats.
And my wife just looked at me and she says, "Where are they?"
Been gone for a while now.
Yeah. And she remembers the days when I was there in the 90s as the beat guy for the Ute basketball.
And you couldn't get a seat.
Oh, man, it was the place to be on Thursdays and Fridays, or Saturdays, I mean.
Yeah, absolutely was.
Yeah.
It was packed. It was rocking. It was an awesome home court advantage.
It really was, and I looked forward to it every day. And I get to go cover this team tonight. And
yep. The band is playing. People are waving the flags.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
great.
just a great atmosphere.
So are they angry or are they apathetic? Because if they're apathetic, man, that bothers me more than anger. And right now, my anecdotal survey seems to be that it's apathetic. And that's a bad situation to be in. And as I look at their team and as I look at the schedule, I don't know that I see it getting better. I doubt they're going to go 0-20. But I don't know what games they're going to win. You know, they got Oklahoma State coming in Saturday, and if they get blown out by Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State looks like bottom half of the league, right?
Statistically, yes. Doesn't mean they're bad.
Right.
But
the point is that they could be one of the bottom half, bottom third, bottom quarter teams in the league, but if there's still too much for you to handle.
If they come in and smoke you, I think we'll see a lot in the next 3 Saturdays. I'm looking at the schedule right now, and the way it works is the next 3. So the 11th, they're home, Oklahoma State, 18th, home, BYU, and then following that up, the 25th, home, Baylor. So that's the rest of the Saturdays in the month, and that's not a work night. And, unless there's some blizzard or something, you can't really say, well, it's inconvenient to go up there, blah, blah, blah. And next week, on the 18th, it'll look super bad if
BYU fans take over the Huntsman Center.
Yeah, and they just dominate. Because they did during the Fredette, when Fredette hit that half-court shot, and Rebel gave me a heart attack, and I was sitting in front of him, and when he screamed it out. And that was a bad look to have the majority of the fans, and certainly in terms of noise, be BYU. And that was Boylan, and we know what happened to Boylan. I hate to say this, man, but I don't know that I see a way out.
Well, the record, the attendance, combined with the quote from the athletic director, I mean, what other picture does that paint for you?
I'm in the moment, and they're 0-3 with 3 blowouts.
Right.
What can I say?
I don't think the attendance is going to get fixed anytime soon. People plan their schedules. They buy season tickets or they don't. That's how most people go to games, is on the season tickets. You can sell some in the secondary market. You can sell some walk-up, but you're not going to sell thousands and thousands of them. So the question is, does the team look more competitive?
The BYU game's ESPN Plus.
Yeah.
That sucks.
You think a rivalry game could meander its way onto ESPNU or ESPN2?
Yeah.
But they got so many slots for the Big 12, and then you've got to look at the Big 12 that day, and if they got nationally ranked teams playing each other.
Don't they have other contracts like football? They got like 2 and 3. So it's on Fox Sports 1 or whatever. They don't have that in basketball? I mean, I don't really follow that stuff.
I haven't followed it either.
They're going to be adding more of that, but it's not. I don't think it comes into effect till
That's
next
what
year.
TNT will do that
will
next
get some
year.
of those. CBS Sports will have more as well.
Yeah. So, you go through and you look at the, if it's not on this station, you try that station.
So I'm looking at this Saturday, and they don't have any games on FS1 or anything else. They've got an ESPN, an ESPN2, another ESPN, and then the rest are on ESPN+.
And I wonder if that hurts Utah, too. Joe Fan is thinking, wait a second, man. I'm already paying through the nose for all my TV stuff.
Yeah.
I want to buy another thing for another $100 or whatever.
No.
And most of their games are ESPN+.
Oh, my gosh.
The overwhelming amount of games are ESPN+.
So that BYU-Utah game, not only is it on ESPN+, number 3 Iowa State and number 21 West Virginia is on ESPN+. Oh, here's your point. CBS Sports Network is taking 2 games. They're taking 12th-ranked Houston playing UCF, and they're taking Arizona State and Cincinnati.
Oh, this weekend you're talking about?
And the next weekend, the weekend of the BYU-Utah game.
Okay.
CBS Sports Network would rather have ASU and Cincinnati than BYU and Utah.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
CBS has a game, and they're taking Kansas and Kansas State. Okay,
that's a
rivalry game with number 11 Kansas, a brand name.
Yeah,
so that's a no-brainer
for sure.
But that's not a great sign that.
My heart bounced.
He took your soul.
Yeah, I mean, it was a phenomenal. I can see it in my eyes. Probably a lot of us can, coming down the right side.
Yep.
And the classic Jimmer.
Yeah, well, there you go.
No, nothing.
It was almost like an MJ shrug. Like
very little show.
He didn't wave goodbye.
No,
like
no, he did not. He's so understated.
I mean, it was halftime. You can leave at halftime. It's over.
Basically, that was.
It was over, right?
Yeah.
That was the dagger.
They really put it to him. Was that the season? I think it was down the road. Nice of you to show up. Was that the same season?
It's 2011. It's right around that same time frame.
Nice of you to show up.
DJ and PK, Ken Pomeroy, KenPom.com, talking college basketball. 15-1 Aggies. What does he think of the Cougars? Is the Big 12 the best league, or is it really the SEC? We'll talk with Ken Pomeroy about college hoops next.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
What a run this Utah State Aggies team is on. If you're not paying attention and you're not following along, you need to start, because this Utah State Aggies team is really, really good. They are 4-0 in quad one road games. Nobody else in the country can match that. Not Duke, not Tennessee even. It's Utah State. It's just a different guy every night. So Carson Templin came off the bench, scores 18 against Fresno State. Before that, Ian Martinez scored 17 straight points to save them in Reno. And of course, Tucker Anderson hits the big threes against San Diego State. They're not leaning on just one guy. It's not just all about Mason Falslev, who's been steady throughout. They got to have other guys step up if you're going to be an NCAA tournament team, if you're going to win the Mountain West Championship. And right now, they're in the driver's seat.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join JJ and Alex along with Advanced Window Products at the Utah Home Show Friday from 3 to 6 at the Mountain America Expo Center in Sandy. DJ PK, and we're joined now by Ken Pomeroy, owner of KenPom.com and college basketball analytics guru. Ken, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, gentlemen. Always a thrill to start my day on your program.
It is a new year. The conference season is underway. In your mind, major storylines, major surprises, disappointments, successes, whatever they might be, what are you thinking?
I think the major storyline is just the strength at the top of the sport right now. Really between Duke, who people may be aware, I have this kid named Cooper Flagg, who has essentially lived up to the hype of being the best freshman in college basketball and on his way to being a first-team All-American. I mean, behind him and you know, kind of a supporting cast that has proven to mesh quite well. Duke looks extremely strong. So strong that they right now have, according to my model, a 36% chance of going undefeated in the ACC. And part of that is Duke is really strong. Part of that is the ACC is weak. But just by comparison, just for reference, guys, Gonzaga in the WCC, perennial, you know, winners of that league have right now an 11% chance of going undefeated. And it's not a super strong Gonzaga team this year, but the point is that Duke is doing its Gonzaga impression on the ACC. And then you have Auburn in the SEC, who has been extremely strong as well. Their only loss was at Duke in a really good game earlier in the season. And those two teams have just been outstanding to start the season. I mean, you look at the ratings, and they're two of the strongest teams that I've had in the ratings to this point in the season.
I can recall watching earlier this year in the season, so it would have been late in 2024. Some coach says, "I don't give a bleep what Ken Palm thinks." Do you remember hearing that?
I do remember. That was Kevin Willard of the University of Maryland. I think it was Kevin Willard, yeah.
And I felt bad for you.
I don't feel bad for me, PK. I've dealt with worse.
But I care what other people think of you.
Yeah, I mean, what is funny about that quote, he was commenting, I guess, somebody was questioning his schedule, and he was basically saying, one of the teams they played that was rated poorly maybe wasn't that poor, and that's where the quote came from. But the oddity is, like, I've had Maryland ranked higher in my ratings than, they've been in the AP poll or, really been kind of in conventional wisdom. So Kevin Willard is only hurting himself by making that comment. So you don't have to feel bad.
Yeah, here's the headline. Sometimes Ken Palm is full of bleep.
Yes. Yep. That's it.
And I thought, oh, great. I am bringing that up when we talk to him.
Yeah, it's a great soundbite for all my friends to play.
What was worse, hearing that sometimes Ken Palm is full of bleep, or DJ not knowing who you are and letting you in the building and made you go around like 2 miles out of the way to get in?
I mean, that's a story that never gets old.
I would tend to disagree, but, whatever you want.
Let's take a vote. We got 3 right here.
Oh, it's going to be 3-1.
Aye.
As a pollster goes, I'm pretty good.
I mean, the problem is, I respect DJ. I mean, who doesn't respect DJ? When DJ tells you got to go through security, I mean, you have to go through security. So.
He thought you were packing heat.
That guy's got to go through a metal detector, obviously. Look at the shifty look on his face.
He's full of shifty. We keep hearing quad 1, quad 2, and it's a big deal, and it's been a big deal. Explain how that is divvied up, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily know what that means.
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, so it's just, in its simplest terms, it's a way to express, the difficulty of an opponent. So it's sort of shorthand. Like, when it comes down to it, the committee, when it's looking at, who you've beaten and the quality of the teams, it's still ultimately going to look at the rank of the opponent and where the game was played. And they're not going to get too hung up on whether it was quad 1 or quad 2 or whatever. But to qualify to be a quad 1 win or a quad 1 game, quad 1 opponent, it would be playing a team at home that's ranked in the top 30. So you're playing in your own building, top 30 team, or you go on the road and it's a top 75 team. So obviously road games are more difficult. So that ranking, there's a larger net there for games that are considered quad 1. So that's how quad 1 works. Quad 2 is another level down, but quad 1 is basically the equivalent of a top 50 game on a neutral court. Quad 2 is the equivalent of a top 100 game on a neutral court. And the more of those wins you get, the better your chances of getting in the tournament are. I mean, in the really simplest terms, I think the committee, this is oversimplifying things, but the committee is basically like going to be impressed by your 5 best wins, and they're going to look at your 5 worst losses, and that's going to go a long way towards determining how you get into the tournament. So obviously, if you're in a conference like the SEC, where almost all of your games are quad 1 and quad 2, like if you win 8 games in conference, like your 5 best wins are going to look really good. And if you're in the Mountain West, it's going to be a little bit more challenging, and if you're in conferences below that, it's going to be extremely challenging because your 5 best wins invariably are going to include 2 or 3 games that are just not very impressive.
To the point that could be expressed maybe a little more eloquently than the Maryland coach shared with us. Jared Calhoun at Utah State said before the game with UC San Diego, this is the best team we're going to play right here. And they lost at home, which obviously they don't lose to the Spectrum a lot. And then they go on the road and beat 3 state teams that you think are pretty good, San Diego State and Nevada and St. Mary's. Now, you have UC San Diego lower than some of those teams. So how would you explain his evaluation, which on the court proved to be true and he called a shot in advance, versus how you got teams stacked up with the numbers right now and how those numbers might play out over the course of the season?
Right. So, I think he was correct up to that point. Up to that point in the schedule, you could certainly make a case that UC San Diego was the best team they have played. I think there's a little bit of, extra mustard on that comment simply to motivate the team and maybe motivate fans and say, hey, this is the team you haven't heard of, but they're actually really good. And by the way, they currently have the longest winning streak in the country. So they're doing the Aggies some favors really by continuing to win. But this does get back to what I was talking about, where it's really, the Aggies completely made up for that loss by, as you said, going on the road, beating St. Mary's and San Diego State, who are probably both going to be tournament teams, beating Nevada, who may not be, but certainly in the running. They've been extremely unlucky in late game situations in conference play so far. But you're looking at your 5 best wins. Those games are going to be on there. Like, it's in some ways it's better if you were going to lose one of those 4 games. It's almost better to lose the home game to UC San Diego, because those other 3 wins actually end up being more impressive and will get the committee's attention a lot more. They love teams that perform well on the road against quality competition, and the Aggies were able to check that box. So they're still in good shape, and like I said, like the UC San Diego loss, Coach Calhoun was right. They're a really good team, and ultimately it was a stunning loss. Props to UC San Diego for coming up to altitude and getting the win in a very difficult place to play, but ultimately it's not too harmful to their resume, because they have more than made up for it since then.
I get what you're saying, that it's better to have those road wins, and so you lose one at home, so what? You got 3 or 4 dings. Right now you may have more that more than make up for that, so they're fine. For the Cougars, a lot of hype around the program, and you live in the community, so you know it as well as anybody, that when Kevin Young came here, it's like, wow, he just took it by storm right off the bat. And so now they're 1-2, very disappointing loss to Tech the other night at home, and we know the Big 12 is difficult. What do you think? Their non-conference record is already on record, and they can't change that. What do you think that they need as far as a record in conference to get in?
So, the Big 12 obviously presents a lot of opportunities for quality wins. That said, the performance on the road of BYU historically in the Big 12 so far has not been great. Their calling card really should be getting wins at home, and that's why, in particular, the Texas Tech game was disappointing. But I'd say right now, to answer your question, probably 11-9 to feel safe. I got them projected 10-10. That might do it. You're obviously going to get quality wins in those 9 future wins that you're going to have. But it would be close at 10-10. 10-10 probably does it, but you might have to do some work in your conference tournament or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
I think the Big 12 is not as strong as it was last year. So last year you go 500 in the league, it's a done deal. Provided you had just kind of a decent non-conference performance, but that's not the case this year. And that loss to Providence in particular is pretty damaging in non-conference play, to really be just not competitive against a team that is probably not going to be anywhere close to a tournament bid. Remains to be seen, still time left, but Providence hasn't looked great so far outside of that game. So yeah, I'd say the goal probably has to be 11-9, and you might sneak in at 10-10.
The Big 12 isn't as good as it's been. That has been much discussed. I assume you think the SEC is the best along with everybody else. How did the top 4, 5, 6 leagues shake out in your mind?
Yeah, the SEC is just in another orbit this year. Their non-conference play, as far as I have data back, which goes to 97, non-conference performance was best in terms of winning percentage by any league, best in terms of margin of victory by any league. So, you can draw a line from that to maybe they're the best conference, that we've ever seen. A lot of that will get, revised when we get to the tournament, and obviously the strong performance in the tournament would have to justify that. But the non-conference play was extremely good, and the question is now, how many bids does the league get? Does it right now? You look at a lot of mocks, and they got 12 bids, 11, 12 bids, something like that. And that may be how it ends up working out. I'm actually really fascinated. There's going to just be some bizarre scenarios out of that league. Like Oklahoma did not lose a game in non-conference play. They won the tournament in the Bahamas, which involved beating Louisville and Arizona in particular. It's pretty impressive. They beat Michigan on a neutral site. In league play now, they're 0-2, and I've been projected to, I think, win 7 games in the SEC, so 7-11. So, that probably gets them into the tournament pretty safely, honestly. And you could, maybe expand from that. Like if they go 6-12, do they get into the tournament? They probably get into the tournament at 6-12. Maybe not 5-13, but there's going to be a lot of interesting reflection going on after Selection Sunday if a team with a 6-12 conference record gets into the NCAA tournament. But that's the deal right now with some of these teams in the SEC who, many of whom put up really nice results in non-conference play, and then some of them are going to have to lose games by definition in conference. So that gives you some perspective on where the SEC is. Big Ten and Big 12 are, buying for a pretty distant second, but also I think pretty easily clear of like the Big East. And then the ACC is just a shell of what it was 20 years ago. I mean, it's the bottom of the league is pretty atrocious, and as was the case last year, the Mountain West is nipping at its heels.
How much work does a team like Arizona have to do? At one point, hard to believe, but they were 4-5. Now, when they went 4-5, they haven't lost since, which I think is like 5 games, and they've started with a couple of nice wins on the road against ranked teams in the Big 12. So it seems like what was bleak has turned into sunshine pretty quick.
Yeah, kind of shades of Alabama last year, who got off to like a 6-5 start and probably wasn't ranked in the AP poll. I don't recall, but was still ranked like top 10 in my ratings, and ultimately their fortunes turned around and they did end up making a Final Four, but not necessarily predicting that kind of meteoric success for Arizona. They're not ranked as high in my ratings as Alabama was last year, but they're still sitting at 13, and as you mentioned, have turned things around, and getting a road win at Cincinnati is nice. Getting a road win at West Virginia, who came off themselves getting a road win at Kansas, is pretty impressive. I have West Virginia ranked as the number 1 home court in the country, and that game was really not close. So I think Arizona's headed in the right direction. Again, they obviously whiffed on every single quality opponent they played in non-conference, and that's not great. But there's just so many opportunities in the league that, if they finish, 4th or 5th in the Big 12, and I think they're capable of doing more. I mean, I do think they're kind of a sneaky contender. They're not as good as the top tier, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, but they're pretty good. They got some talent, and if they finish 4th or 5th in that league, they will not be sweating at all. They'll be a pretty decent seed in the tournament.
Well, Ken, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks for coming on and talking a little college hoops. And as things ramp up here, we will check back in with you.
And I give a you know what, no matter what you say.
Sometimes
I care.
10 pumps full.
Outstanding. Love it.
Sometimes Ken Palm's full.
Thank you, Ken.
See you guys.
Ken Pomeroy from KenPom.com, a local Utahn who is a power broker in the college basketball scene.
Yeah, I happened to hear that. And I got to file that. It's funny how famous he is, the name, but some people don't know the face. Like you didn't know the face.
I did not know the face.
I have been with him in situations with athletic directors, and I've had to introduce him to.
They know they 100% know the name,
yeah.
and they 0% can match it with the face.
Right.
Right.
Because I've been with him at conference tournaments, and I know some ADs. They know my ugly mug, and he's sitting right with me, and I know they don't know who he is, but once I introduce them, then they're like,
Ken.
I'm not even there.
You're not even there. They turn and talk to the king.
Right. I've seen that happen on multiple occasions. So you're not alone.
All right, Cole Bagley, Utah Hockey Club insider for The Zone, joins us in about 15 minutes right here on The Zone. The John Watson Northern Utah High School Players of the Week are Mae Johnson from Bountiful High and Bryson Landis from Bonneville High. Johnson had a big week as the Redhawks won twice. She tallied 24 points, 16 rebounds, and 4 blocks in a 75-41 win over Box Elder, and followed that up with 25 points and 13 boards in a win at Viewmont. Landis powered Bonneville to a pair of wins, scoring 17 points and grabbing 12 boards in a 45-43 squeaker, a win at Woods Cross, before following it up with 10 points and 9 boards in a 55-51 win over Clearfield. See why new and used car buyers give John Watson Chevrolet more 5-star reviews than any other Chevy dealer in Utah. John Watson Chevrolet, your 5-star Chevy dealer. Utah Jazz are back home tonight, PK. Are you ready for a W? They beat Miami once. Can they do it again? The Heat come in, losers of 3 of the last 4. They did just win at Golden State to snap the 3-game losing streak. And Jimmy Butler is still in the middle of that 7-game suspension.
You know, I think, though, now it's more settled with the suspension than it was at the time, because I don't think he was suspended at that point yet, was he?
That was the first game.
Was he suspended?
He was suspended. It had just happened. But I think
they've adjusted.
To your point now, the hubbub, the major distraction, he's still gone. But it was all fresh. It was all brand new. Now they played multiple games and won one without him.
Right.
So are they mentally in a different place? Yeah, you can make that case. Well, we'll find out tonight.
And then physically they're in a different place, too.
Clearly that's true because the other game was in Florida.
Right, so you combine the two.
Mentally and physically.
That's all you can do.
Now, what do you think psychologically?
I think these guys have gotten past it. These guys, you're all pros. And, I mean, they're not all pros. Every one of them is a pro. They're not all pro. You know what I mean?
They're each pros.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I would suspect that they would be able to offer more resistance than they did the other night, which was virtually nothing.
Jazz injury report, Keontae George out, heel. John Collins out, hip. Bryce Sensabaugh questionable due to an illness. He was obviously out for the last game.
Did you just get that?
No. I found it.
You found it?
I had to look for it. I am not sent that information.
Oh. Well, but that's in the morning. Don't they put one out later in the day?
Can certainly be updated during the day, and things do change during the day. It's not at all surprising. He's something Sensabaugh could go out or he could go to probable. I would be surprised if Collins or George's status changed. You can't rule it out, but that would be surprising.
And we know Clarkson is out. Right? He's going to be evaluated in a couple of weeks, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
he underwent an MRI on his left foot Monday, which confirmed the torn plantar fascia. So
that sounds like an ouch to me.
That sounds like it'd be going for a while.
Yeah, so I would expect a more competitive game, and I hope the Jazz lose.
There it is, on the way to better lottery odds.
Yeah. I mean, I hope they freaking lose and
more
lose
of that,
and lose some more.
More of those Atlanta games. Entertaining, competitive. Oh, and he hit a half quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. I would take that 47 more times.
Cole Bagley, Utah Hockey Club insider for the Zone, joins us on the heels of that loss to Florida, but it's not the losses to the Stanley Cup champs that are the problem. It's the losses to the teams in last place. San Jose's struggling. We will look ahead to that with Cole next. DJ PK is proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. Utah Hockey Club coming off a 4-1 loss, beaten by the Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers, a game that was more competitive than the final score looks because there were 2 empty net goals there right at the end. Scoreless after one period, and we're joined right now by Cole Bagley, Utah Hockey Club insider for the Zone. And Cole's appearance is brought to you by Hercules Credit Union, brought to you by Hercules First Credit Union, growing stronger together. Cole, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good. Cole, closer than it looked against the defending Stanley Cup champions, 4-1, but there were 2 empty netters in there. And after a first period that saw a lot of big hits, maybe some of them across the line, but nonetheless, the guys on the TNT broadcast were talking between periods that Utah had done a good job of not getting drawn into that, but they had to stand up for themselves a little bit with the caveat, don't take a penalty and give them a power play. Immediately, high-sticking power play goal, and now they're chasing the game the rest of the night. Did it feel like things turned early in that second period to you? Or, given the way Florida defends, the way they play the right way, as some of the players pointed out, we just heard Logan Cooley say that, they were always running uphill even when the score was tied. What do you think?
I mean, I think that for the most part, I think Utah played a good game against the reigning Stanley Cup champions. And Florida built a championship roster on physicality. I mean, that's just what they're known for. They bully you all game long. Their forecheck is relentless. They got a couple guys on their team that camp out in front of the net and just pester the goalie, pester defensemen. And the first period response was phenomenal. I mean, they went toe to toe with Florida in that respect. I think the hits were 10-9 and in favor of Florida after the first period. So, Utah was right there. It was a close game. They took a bad penalty, and Florida's physicality wore them down during that power play. Utah had multiple chances to clear. Florida's forecheck was just suffocating. They won the puck back in the offensive zone, and tic-tac-toe passes end up in the back of the net. And so, it was when you look at kind of the game as a whole, I really liked the way that Utah did compete, but it wasn't a full 60 minutes of staying with Florida physically. There were some key breakdowns, and that's when Florida scored. Now, Utah did respond and brought it to within one in the third period, but, just kind of the theme for this season is that Utah's just been right there. They've been so close in a lot of games, but unfortunately, another one just doesn't go their way. The comeback falls short. But, I think it was a commendable effort. And, like the guy said, there's a lot to like, a lot to learn from, and a lot to kind of grow on, from how they played last night.
Watching the game, it looked like they had some chances, particularly in the middle period. What do you think needs to happen for them to get a little more consistency offensively?
It's a really good question. And I think it's a tough one to answer. I think if there was more of a clear-cut answer, the team would definitely be applying it. But what Logan Cooley talked about last night was just staying positive, just continuing to play, to play the game. He talked about playing the right way for the full, 60 minutes, and I think that could have, kind of a major impact. I mean, the thing that people kind of need to realize is this team is still in learning mode. This team is still, searching for their identity. You look at the teams that are competing for Stanley Cups, like Florida or, like Dallas. Those teams know exactly who they are, what their brand of hockey is, and they're able to replicate it every night. Utah is not quite to that point yet. A lot of it has to do with, how young they are. They're in year 4 of the rebuild. And I know that, we kind of keep talking about the same things, but it's very much just, the state of the team. Guys like Logan Cooley, he's 20. Dylan Gunther's 21. The old vets on the team are 26 to 28 years old. Like this is the 5th youngest team in the National Hockey League, and so it's not an identity crisis by any means, but they're searching for that identity. And so, playing 60 minutes of hockey is one of the toughest things to do in the NHL. And as a young team, they're just not quite there yet. But give it a little bit more time, a couple more, maybe another season or two. And as they continue to add, from their prospect pool, which is deep and which is very talented, they'll start to figure it out, and they will, eventually get to an identity. And I think they'll eventually be a team here, that they can compete. But right now, they're still in that learning mode.
It's been a tough stretch here. They have lost 7 of the last 8. Now, they have taken points in some of those. Obviously, they got a point in that game in Dallas and before losing in overtime. But when we had Mike Folt on, the first thing he went to is it's the performance in the games against the teams that are below them in the standings, that are also rebuilding. If you lose to the Oilers, so be it. If you lose to the Stars or the Panthers, so be it. But it's the Ducks, it's the Kraken, it's the Sharks. They're dropping points here against teams, and they got the Sharks and Islanders coming up here in short order. Like we treat the Stanley Cup champs like they're a big deal, and it is because they're the champs. But for the progress of the team, it's winning these games that's a big deal.
Yeah, January is going to define, the rest of the season for the Utah Hockey Club. These are important games. Over the next week and a half, they're playing teams like San Jose, like the New York Islanders, like, the New York Rangers, who are in an absolute disaster right now, Montreal. These are winnable games. I think the next 5 games are all against, teams that are not in the playoff race. And so, Utah really has to buckle down if they're serious about trying to make the playoffs. And look, they're not going to win a Stanley Cup this season. But, the most value they could take out of this year would be getting to the first round of the playoffs, getting that experience. That's what's going to start really helping, propel their identity, propel their momentum. And so, the rest of this month is critical. I think they need to win 4 of the next 5 to seriously have a chance to, make a push for the playoffs. And it's a big opportunity. They got to start figuring out how to win at home. They can't just keep stacking up L's at the Delta Center. I agree with Mike that, you can understand and you can kind of look past those types of losses to legitimate contenders. But when you're up 4-1 over the Anaheim Ducks and you end up losing 5-4, it's not an acceptable result. And those are the games that really frustrate the players. So this next, 4 or 5 game stretch is going to define if this team is really serious about making a playoff push.
How about holding on a little bit, because it looks like they're going to get some reinforcements back, maybe the end of the month, February?
Yeah, I expect that by the end of the month that they will have Maverick Lamoureux and John Marino back. That's kind of the timelines that, we've been told, and both guys are making progress. Neither of them are wearing non-contact jerseys anymore. They're full participants in practice, and so that's going to come at a really good time. And so if they can push through, if they can get 4 or 5 wins over the next week and a half, 2 weeks, they can get some good reinforcements. They can actually have a blue line that is not falling apart. That doesn't have 4 or 5 injuries, and that could really help put this team over the top in terms of finding some consistency and getting more wins than losses for the rest of the year.
One guy coming back here, Connor Ingram in goal. I know Bear got the question, and you were probably standing there. I didn't hear who asked the question. I just heard the response. Maybe you asked it. What happens with goaltending? And it seems the way Vejmelka's going here. I mean, I know it's a 4-1 loss, but it's 2 empty net goals. He's not on the ice for there's a power play goal. He's been really good. The numbers back that up. I would think he's the guy, and Ingram is the second guy, and Bear did a nice job with a nice non-answer answer, so he answered the question, but he didn't paint himself into a corner, because you're always getting new information, seriously, right? And why tell Connor Ingram he's number 2? There could be an injury. You could need him to be number 1. Don't talk him down. So I totally get why he did what he did, but Vejmelka's the guy, and then Ingram spells him, right?
Yeah, I mean, right now, Vejmelka's a top 5 goaltender in terms of save percentage and goals against. If they were to bring Ingram back and put him back as the top goaltender, would not be the right move. I mean, the NHL, a lot of time it's about riding the hot glove, and right now that's Vejmelka. He's a top 5 goaltender, so I can't imagine that whenever Ingram's back that there will be any sort of competition there. I would kind of anticipate that if Ingram comes back, and they send Stauber back down to the AHL and roll with Vejmelka and Ingram again, that it will be at least right off the bat, I would anticipate that it's a similar kind of load as what we're seeing now, where Vejmelka's in the net 80 to 90% of the time, and Ingram's just kind of filling in to give him a break. But we'll see. Like, I'm not even fully convinced that there won't be a legitimate competition between Ingram and Stauber. I mean, I think Stauber has been fantastic. Ingram struggled. Ingram's save percentage was 86, 87% before he got injured, and that's just not good enough. There were, I think, quite a few games that Utah would have been a lot closer in, and maybe, could have potentially won a few more games earlier in the season, if Ingram was a bit better or if Vejmelka was starting. And so, we'll kind of wait and see what happens. I do anticipate Ingram coming back, but I think the competition is more so going to be between Stauber and Ingram in terms of who's number 2 rather than who's number 1, because Vejmelka's just been too good.
Cool. We'll leave it right there for now. We appreciate your time as always. Enjoy the games Friday and Saturday night. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Back-to-back home games for the Utah Hockey Club at the Delta Center Friday and Saturday night. And as he points out, winnable games. It goes to what you said with Mike. 10 points out of 14. Maybe you can accept 9. Anything less than that, and you've squandered opportunities.
That's the thing about it, is this is an opportunity, and you want to cash in on it. Because if you don't, then obviously it makes it that much harder to make up for the lost opportunity. And you can dope out some games. And I think all coaches do that. I don't think they ever admit it. But I think they look at certain parts of the schedule and when the opponents are, who the opponents are, and they look at, okay, we got to get this, because if we don't, that puts us behind the 8 ball, and then we got to make up for it somehow. Not to say that they can't, but, they're making progression this season. Unless if we carry it all out, and we still have
half the season
42 games to go, so there's still plenty of time. You'd have to look, unless there was a complete crash, that there was progress made. Now, you can't just keep living on, well, they're 20 and 21. I mean, I've heard that a million times.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. But you're playing them. And so you obviously think they're good enough to be
you're playing them
frozen water.
You're playing them and you're paying them. As Jerry Sloan said a long time ago, nobody's redshirting here.
Yeah.
Everybody's checks are clearing on the 1st and 15th. You got to go perform. And get it against Florida, but the Sharks and the Islanders, this isn't exactly murderer's row here this weekend. They're both in last place.
I'll give them the idea of being young, but when they're 23, 24, they're still young, but at the same time, they had 4 or 5 years in the league. And there's got to be some production. And it looks like it'll come, but you want to see some advancement. And, I think overall, as I say, unless there was a total bottoming out, there is progression this season. And just being here in a stable situation where you're going to be for as long as you're on this team and in this organization, and I love saying it that way.
You do.
That you're going to.
In your what?
Or in the organization.
There you go.
They're going to be here. That alone will help. And I do think there's good times to come. But you also have to focus on the now, too. Why can't there be good times now? You just can't concede, oh, well, they're young, so we'll get it going down the line. Sure, I believe that'll happen. But let's try to get it going right now. Because you've shown the ability at times to do that.
They have not been scoring goals since Christmas, with one exception, and that's the only game they've won since Christmas, when they beat Calgary 5-3. But other than that, we're seeing a lot of the number 1 and the number 2, and those numbers aren't usually enough to win games.
And I have a lot of number 1s and number 2.
Easy now, I teed that up. That's mostly my fault. What do you think? That's 60% my fault, Yak?
Like 99%.
Oh, really? 99.
You walked it right up.
Yeah.
Like
1 goal, 2 goal games. That would have been better.
I see a lot of that myself.
I bet you do. from 10 to 10:20.
I'm agreeing with you. You say I'm argumentative, and I agree with you.
I agree that you're agreeing. When we come back, most of what you missed in this show, not everything, because everything we'd have to repeat that, and I don't want to repeat the last 2 minutes. Ken Pomeroy joined us to talk college hoops. We talked a little football. Got a game tonight, another one tomorrow. College football playoffs. 5 straight nights of football coming up. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Bill Armstrong kind enough to join us. When they got out to a hot start, you said, hey, this might be a little bit more than where we're at. And then when you lose a few, you're like, this isn't who we are either. Is this kind of where you expected your team to be at this point in the season?
This is exactly where I expected us to be, right in the hunt, right in the thick of things, with a great schedule in front of us. And the thing that we look forward to on the inside is that we haven't really had our whole team on the ice together. You know, Jersey's been injured, Marino's been injured, Ingram's out now, along with Lamoureux and Bortuzzo. So we really haven't had our best lineup on that ice. And that's what I look forward to coming down the stretch, is when we need to have our best on that ice, we have a chance. Guys are coming back from being injured, and it's going to be exciting times for us just to see everybody on that ice and see how good we can be in the big moments down the stretch.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
9 a.m. Slacker Radio headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. 801-899-7600 or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Everything you missed in this show. PK, the hockey, the college hoops, the NBA hoops. Where would you like to start? The most interesting thing you learned during today's show was what?
Yeah, sometimes I surprise myself. I don't know why. I've been brilliant for a number of years. You'd think I would be on to me. Just that.
Why do you constantly underestimate yourself?
I don't know. Because you do, I guess.
Nope, that's not why. Don't blame me for your problems.
The situation of BYU basketball, Ken Palm thinking they're going to have to most likely have a winning record in conference, which they did last year. And we assumed that this team would be better this year. And I know that the conference media picked them 9th and all, but our hype inside the state seemed like it was more than that. And that's going to be the storyline to follow.
There's a couple reasons for that. One, the league media did pick them 9th. And 2, the hype was way more than that.
Well, you bring in 2 guys late in the recruiting cycle who are projected to be first-round picks. I don't care if they're 14 years old. That gets me excited.
And it did the fan base, too.
And justifiably.
But time together matters. And we always hear that as a positive when teams get to take a trip to Europe. I really felt like that helped us build and all that. And so here, as you pointed out yesterday, there were a bunch of guys who came together late.
Yeah,
and
I know.
They haven't been together. The coaches haven't been together, the players and coaches. But the fact that the Big 12 as a league didn't have a great non-conference, and BYU and Utah didn't help. They didn't play much quality opposition, and when they did, it didn't go well. And so this is a league where before you could go 500 and you were in. And he did say maybe they could still get in at 500. There's a lot of factors with what other teams and other leagues do and who takes how many spots and all that stuff. But he's big on the SEC taking a lot. He was pointing out Oklahoma could get in at 7-11, maybe at 6-12.
6-12 seems outrageous. But, hey, Boise got in with a close loss to Oregon, and BYU has a close loss to Ole Miss. And that's an SEC team. What's the difference? Why the hypocrisy?
Well, we'll see if it comes to that. Plus, the schedule's lightening up. They could go on a bit of a roll. We were just talking about the Utah Hockey Club. Their schedule's lightening up. They could go on a bit of a roll. Make your free throws.
Yeah.
You can win these games.
To me, it's about you guys, not the opponent. Because if you don't play well, what difference does it make the schedule lightening up? Especially on the road in college basketball. It's the flukiest thing to where the road really matters the most in this very sport.
Well, I would dismiss the word fluky. I think it's been proven over years that of all the home court advantages in sports, a home court advantage in basketball in college Nothing fluky about it. That's an advantage.
Oh, I think it's fluky that Richie Saunders goes off for 34 points, and then he may go 5 games to total 34. I think that's fluky.
That's fluky.
That's what I'm talking about.
But the fact is, going on the road in college hoops is hard.
Yeah, but it is. I've witnessed it.
Right.
And to have that disparity doesn't make sense to me.
But in a 40-minute game with a shot clock and a three-point shot, crazy things do happen.
Yeah, but you don't go for a career high and then only get 4
vaporize.
FGAs 2 games later. That doesn't resonate. It's like Texas Tech knew where the ball was going. BYU doesn't have any idea where the ball is going. And they've got to figure that out. They have a shot. It's not like it's impossible, but man, they got to get going. And that's a surprise to me. Ken Palm is saying basically they've got to get a winning record. And, they have plenty of games to do that.
They do. There's plenty of time. And
I think that's
it's still doable.
The number one thing. And then the hockey team still finding ways to score and put some pressure on the opponent. And then you've got the playoff game tonight. This is massive. 2 brand names. I'll be watching.
Notre Dame and Penn State. The first semifinal. Ohio State and Texas play tomorrow night. Thursday night football. Wearing the college label instead of the pro label as it does all year long.
Good. I like it.
The game kicks off tonight at 5:30 on ESPN. The Orange Bowl. 2 teams from that side of the country going down to Miami.
Yeah. That's great.
Notre Dame riding the Kyle Whittingham and style football. Defense. Run the ball. Throw it if absolutely necessary. And it has worked for them.
Yeah, Leonard, the quarterback, his statistics are very similar to what Cam Rising did when they were really good. Be efficient in the throw game.
And he is.
And that's
his completion percentage up around 66%.
Yeah,
but he throws for less than 200 yards per game.
But that doesn't matter to me. And they're averaging almost 40 points a game.
Given the fact only 3 teams have gotten to 14 points on their defense, it really doesn't matter. They haven't had to throw. They're ahead. Shorten games, run the ball. And to me, the most surprising thing of the Georgia game was watching Notre Dame guys run around. Not run at and through Georgia guys, but run around them. They were the guy who had contained was getting beat and looping back around him and running up the numbers for 7-8 yards on first down. 2nd to 2, 2nd to 3 makes a lot of offenses look good and makes a lot of offensive coordinators look like geniuses.
I'm thinking Notre Dame wins.
Got a poll question up at Twitter. Notre Dame, Penn State. Who you got tonight?
Notre Dame.
Vote, and we will update you after the break in the feedback segment.
23-17.
David DJ James. 23-17. That would actually be a poor game for the Notre Dame defense. I think that'd just be the 4th team all year to get to 17 points on them. I have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure that's right. Maybe the 5th.
Whoa. They give up 17 points and that's a poor game? No way.
They've been that awesome.
I don't care. I don't care what they did against whomever.
By their standards, that would be a poor game.
But
I get your point.
No, that's
17
not
points
true
is a great
at all.
night.
You ask Marcus Freeman if you give up 17 points right now, he says yes. 1,000% of the times.
And he thinks he's going to the title game. But they just held Georgia to 10.
Well, Georgia had a backup quarterback.
Yep.
Gunnar Stockton. John should have named one of his kids. May have lasted longer in the NBA. Hey, I'm a gunner. If you tell NBA GMs I'm a gunner and I'm a Stockton, what better combination is that?
Penn State coach James Franklin telling the media he wants more uniformity across the sport. It should be consistent across college football. This is no knock at Notre Dame, but I think everybody should be in a conference. I think everybody should play a conference championship game, or nobody should play a conference championship game. I think everybody should play the same number of conference games.
I wonder, did they lose the conference championship game?
Let me check. Checks notes. Yep, Oregon beat them.
Yeah. College football needs to wake up and acknowledge the obvious. It is a pro-style sport with pro-style money, so run it like a pro-style. Have a commissioner. The academics and those folks, who cares what they think? Get away from it. They're not student athletes. And I've been saying this long before NIL became a thing. They are players. So acknowledge it. They're not going because of your phenomenal engineering school. And plenty of people are going because of your phenomenal engineering school. That's great. But that's not the way it is over here. The top level guys are going, where can I get the money? Where can I develop to put myself in position to play NFL football? That's their jobs potentially. It's no different than the journalism school. I see zero different. The education school, you're going through the program to be a teacher, to be a professor, whatever. Acknowledge it for what it is.
If I had called my parents in the middle of my junior year and say NBC just called and offered me $500,000 to go call, I don't know, NFL and NBA games, I turned them down. I'm going to get my education. What? Get you.
They would have been on the first plane to Santa Barbara.
Just on general principles. Let's go to Santa Barbara.
Yeah. I mean, you could always get your degree. And that's important. I'm not discounting that. But we need to acknowledge it for what it is. So get a commissioner. Somebody said Nick Saban. I would sign off on that today, right now.
The conference commissioners aren't going to give up power. Who gives up power voluntarily? They're going to do that, vote their power away to a commissioner for the sport?
Yeah, but those guys, they'll be aging out of the system. And they'll go away.
Aging out the backside of their prime?
Does Matt Harpring? Yeah, for sure. That was a little awkward, but I got your point.
I got to my point eventually.
So it needs to be done, because I agree with what Franklin on his premise is saying, because Kyle's been beating that drum for years. And I don't hear James Franklin talk all the time, but I hear Kyle Whittingham talk all the time, and he's been saying that.
And he's talking about Notre Dame, and they're playing Notre Dame, and let's be honest, it's Notre Dame. But as a Big Ten guy, I assume he would also say 9 conference games. The Big 12 and the Big 10 are doing 9. The ACC and the SEC are doing 8.
Right. And they're scheduling that dog opponent the week before the big games, blah, blah,
and
blah.
The other thing is, okay, we're not telling them the conference games, but everybody has to play 10 Power 4 opponents. Now, if you want to play 8 conference games and schedule 2 big non-conference games out of 4, okay, you end up in the same place.
No, I would make it
think
uniform.
The conferences need to play, because if you're going to be in a conference, you need to see each other and build some rivalries.
College football. Some of
these schools,
TV ratings are fine.
Some of these schools want to play their in-state rival in another league, and they want to play an interconference game, and they want to play 11 Power 4 games, so they sit at 8.
Get over yourself. Set it up, and if they're all competing for the same prize, then the rules all need to be the same.
Look at you logicking it out. It's usually my role.
Well, it's the Whittingham deal. He's been saying it forever. I agree with him.
NBA basketball, a potential NBA Finals preview, competitive game. Cleveland pulls away at the end and wins 129-122. They beat Oklahoma City. Thunder had a 15-game win streak. It gets snapped. Cleveland's won 11 in a row. That's the top team in the East and the top team in the West, and they play again a week from tonight in Oklahoma. They were in Ohio last night. Jared Allen, 25-11, a poor shooting game for Donovan Mitchell in that, and yet they win anyway, even though he was 3 of 16 for 11 points.
Well, he's not a big-time player. I don't think he can carry his team to anything that matters.
Why do you say stuff like that? You know people take you seriously.
That's Shaq.
Ah.
It's not me.
Nice.
That's Shaq. Isn't that what he said to him, essentially?
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you do for me besides score points? When you don't score points, you don't do anything. That was his take.
Shooting, and then he'll have a 12 for 16 game coming up. It's the law of numbers. Or, excuse me, the law of numbers.
Law of numbers, Matt Harpring.
It's supposed to be the law of averages.
Yeah, but he said law of numbers.
Yeah, I don't worry about that. Does anybody worry about Donovan Mitchell shooting?
No, because they won. If they lost, it'd be a huge story.
So
but they
what?
won.
They won. Game in January.
Yep. But can they shut him down with a bigger player? Not shut him down, but limit him dramatically with a bigger player.
I think Donovan Mitchell, some nights they go in and some nights they don't. He's been battling this forever. My gosh, if he was 6'7", 6'5", we would be thinking him as the next Kobe and MJ.
But he's not, so we don't.
Right. But he's still very good. He's an all-star. And how good is Cleveland going to be? I like to see Cleveland, in terms of being elite with the number 1 seed, they're a new kid. They're not really that new. All their players have been around. And how good can they be? Because this guy, growing up in the New York area, following the league and all that, he yearns to be at the top. And can he do it? Or will it be another disappointment?
Their 3rd season together. The familiarity is starting to pay off, it looks like.
First-year coach, but yeah, I get your point.
Yeah. They are 32
but they're rocking it.
32-4 right now.
Yeah, 18-1 at home.
And 19-1 now with that one. So we'll see what they do on the road in a week in Oklahoma. Anything else to share with the people from today's show? Wherever you want to hear Ken Pomeroy or Cole Bagley, KenPom.com. Ken Pomeroy talking college hoops. Cole Bagley covering the Utah Hockey Club. You can get them wherever you get your podcasts. Sony Open, 60 years of going to Oahu. And they're going to be there this week. Started back in 1965. So I guess this makes 61 tournaments.
I remember that 65 tournament.
I bet you don't. Wildland Country Club, Patrick Fishburne will be the only local in the field. I think Matsuyama's playing, though. See if he can go back-to-back, win 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, why wouldn't you play? You're already there.
Yep. A lot of guys just want the time off. But he doesn't. He'll play. When we come back, your feedback, David DJ James on Facebook, DJ and PK. You can vote in the poll question, Notre Dame, Penn State. Who you got? It's a little on the lopsided side. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. A little college football transfer portal news out there, PK.
Yeah. Brandon Rose going to UMass.
And Crew Wakely's going to Purdue.
Yeah. He wasn't on scholarship here, and I don't think he needed to read the writing on the wall. I think it was read to him, and so wish him the best at Purdue. So be it.
That's where the locals end up. Told you there's a college football poll question up on Twitter.
Hey,
David
don't forget
G.
about Garrison Grimes.
Garrison Grimes.
The Grime Dogs kid, Garrison's
snapper.
going to be the long snapper. Now, obviously, he has experience living in the Provo area with his father being the OC here.
He's an American Fort caveman.
2 different stints at BYU.
And now he's a Cougar.
Yeah, so their long snapper went to the portal. I don't know where he's going.
Yeah, Riggs is in the portal. They actually had 2, and the younger one's going on a mission, so they needed a guy.
They got an opening.
Yep.
Go snap the ball. That's important. If you screw it up, that's a big deal. If you do what you're supposed to do, you get no pats on the back.
Is this just misremembering, or are there fewer crazy snaps on field goals, extra points, and punts than there used to be? Are long snappers more dialed in? Is it more precise? Doesn't seem like we see the ball go over the punter's head.
I haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
That's something I'm going to contemplate, and I'll come back with a more educated answer tomorrow. So I would advise, if there's one thing that we give you a reason to listen to tomorrow's show, that's it.
Who wins tonight? 69% of you believe Notre Dame. 31% for Penn State. We're a little over 100 votes, which is a little lower than I might have expected. Suggests maybe there's a little apathy. No teams from this side of the country. Are people really into it?
Well, slide in. Who's going to win tonight's game, Notre Dame or BYU? Just see what happens. You get more votes.
See, we get more votes. 5:30 for the football game, 7 o'clock for the Jazz game tonight. So a little offset, but the second half of football and the first half or 3/4 of the Jazz game will overlap.
I know precisely where my butt cheeks are going to be at 5:30 tonight.
You gonna start it at 4 o'clock because Rutgers is playing tonight. Gonna do a little scouting report.
4. I don't think I can at 4, but by 5, I'm usually okay.
Rutgers is 8-7, 1-3 in the Big Ten. They are hosting Purdue at 4 o'clock on FS1. If you want to.
Now Harper's been sick. He only played a few minutes the other night, so hopefully for him he's recovered. I've seen them play 4 or 5 times now. The other night, but he had to lead the game. He was too ill, so that doesn't really count.
So even if you can't see it tonight at 4, you might not miss anything anyway, depending on his health. I don't know what his health is tonight.
Now that you say that, I'm going to try to move up some stuff so I can be in front of the television at 4. It's a little harder because I've got to watch those other games. This is sort of optional.
Yep.
The other games I think are required.
Yeah. If you don't catch him now, you'll love this, PK.
Yeah.
They play UCLA, a Big Ten game. Rutgers and UCLA on Monday is their next one.
That is so weird. I saw over the weekend Clemson playing Cal. And I thought, that's a nice, this is a conference game.
It is.
This is so freaking stupid.
I know.
To me, it's far more stupid than football.
I was flipping around I was watching the hockey game last night on TNT, and it was a commercial break in the intermission, and I'm bouncing around. I went to the ACC network, and Cal was on.
Yeah, this is...
Cal's playing on the ACC network.
This is so stupid.
All right, your feedback for today's show. Things you have shared with us. As far as the college football title game, Brian at 49er Coug, this is not going to be a blah, but this is going to be a little better than one of those 7-7 defensive battles.
Tonight, speaking of?
So I wonder if he's thinking something, 23-21, 21-17, something like that.
No, 23-17. I already told you.
Oh, okay. You don't have to watch the game. Who's going to win 23-17? Notre Dame, right?
Notre Dame.
Okay, there it is. Notre Dame, N-O-T-A, Notre Dame, said like an Irish-Italian guy from Jersey.
There's many of us, which is not necessarily a good thing.
This one came in late after the show yesterday, but interesting. Jake retweeted our safe to say BYU basketball is a little overhyped question. He said, 2 Q1 losses, the start of conference play doesn't necessarily mean that this team can't live up to the hype. Kurt's on board, and he's not getting off the bandwagon.
And one blowout loss and a home loss.
Yep. Nonetheless, Kurt is on the bandwagon.
Did you hear what Kevin Young said right off the start? He didn't sound very happy.
He did not sound happy. As far as the question, the NHL is nearing the halfway point of the season. How much you into the Utah Hockey Club? Spent a lot of time on this early this morning. You can go back and listen in the second hour. Dustin, incredibly invested. I've watched every game. I've listened to every episode of the Two Line Pass, the best Utah HC podcast on the planet. So there you go. Hockey fan dialed in.
Good.
Cameron, I'd be a lot more into them if the tickets weren't so expensive. Glad I can watch them on TV. Not everyone can, but Cameron can. If you got satellite or one of those HD antennas, you're good to go. Station isn't on Comcast, so a lot of people are this morning complaining about that, but Cameron gets to watch them on TV, and he's enjoying them. People on board. As you said, it's a sports town. There's enough people living here, whatever the sport is, there's going to be a core audience for it.
I've enjoyed it.
Yep. Filled in more of our winter nights with something to watch.
We were watching the game the other night. My wife, may be the first time, and they go into overtime, and she says, why does it seem like there's so much more room? Oh, because
there's so much more room. They take 2 guys off the ice.
I said, this is what they do in overtime here in the regular season. And I said, so you'll see a lot more up and down. And she said, oh, yeah, man, you could really notice it because it does get jammed up in front of the goal a lot of times as they're trying to get in the way, and you never know which deflection it's going to go, what have you, that type of thing. And sometimes, a lot of times, the goalkeeper can't even see what's going on. And
that's the whole point, right? Screen him.
That puck coming at you so dang fast.
Got no chance.
Right. You can't block what you can't see.
This is just out. The Jacksonville Jaguars, just in the last 20 minutes, have put it out on Twitter. We've requested an interview with Steve Spagnuolo for our head coaching vacancy. Spags?
Oh!
Ed Werder says no NFL assistant has more Super Bowl rings than Spags.
Than Spags?
No, he says Steve Spagnuolo. He's with the Chiefs now. I think he won one with the Rams. I don't know what he did as a position coach. I assume he got some more there. Chiefs defensive coordinator now.
How old is he?
He is 65 years old.
I wonder, does he want the headache?
An excellent question. Or does he want to sit there and ride in Kansas City and just keep winning and getting paid? And that's good enough. Because it's awfully good.
Just call me when you're done, Andy.
Yeah, right. We'll ride off into the sunset together.
Yeah.
All right, DJ and PK, we're all done. Jake and Ben are next right here on The Zone.